Okay, call this work session to order, Wednesday, March 20th, 1:01 p.m. Open it up for visitor comments. That'd be you, Patrick.
Good afternoon. Patrick Trapp, Port of Columbia County. Just wanted to give you a little update. And I know a number of you were at the city-county dinner last night and heard some of this, but you all weren't, so I'll repeat some of it if you bear with me. Close enough.
Yeah.
I could talk louder. That's not a problem. But okay, I just want to let you know the port this morning we had our port commission meeting. We did approve an extension to Next Energy. They're the renewable diesel folks out at Port Westward to have their paperwork and start getting everything in order under their site development plan. It's not a lease. It's a site development plan and option for a lease. So that's going to go on until about mid-June to see if all the paperwork, all the input and requests can be put in by then. So that we approved that this morning. In addition to that, just to bring you up to date on one of our properties here in St. Helens, what we term as Railroad Avenue down there at the end of the street. We've been going for the past 22 years working with DEQ on identifying remedial investigation associated with the pollution associated with the old Pope and Talbot creosote plant out there. So after a couple decades now, we're finally moving into the area of transitioning from that remedial investigation to what's called a feasibility study. So during that feasibility study now, we'll be evaluating and working with DEQ in regard to what best options and an approved direction associated with intended cleanup. So if the feasibility study portion is done, then we move on to a DEQ approval actual cleanup. It's we hope to have the submission of the FS by the end of this calendar year. It'll be a little aggressive. We're working on the scope of work right now to put out an RFP so that we can then contract someone that will work with us on this FS. So, yes, sir.
How many acres does that entail,
Well,
approximately?
the cleanup or the complex?
Total and cleanup. That's what I was searching for, is the kind of the ratio between what's good, what do you have to clean up?
The area itself is about 45 acres we consider usable right now, of which 22 to 25 acres has already been approved, what's called no further action.
Great.
Which means it's already open. We've actually leased it out to some people on and off through the years. And then the study went on for the other half, including the area along the shoreline. So that area is called the active area, and in which cases we're still detecting either sheens or something along the lines. So the cleanup will be focused on those active areas. The passive area has already been identified that through time it's going to clean up itself. Does that actual area of cleanup is probably, I want to say, 3 to 5 acres of actual now active cleanup. So we've continued to refine this process down over the time period. So that is.
Thank you.
But that's where we stand at Railroad Avenue. As mentioned, I think last time we were working towards our McNulty industrial site, a spec building. We're still moving forward. That's actually in the budget, proposed in the budget for next year. That'll be about 35,000 square foot flex space that we anticipate will be about $3.5 million building. So we'll hopefully keep that on course and moving forward. Councilman Carlson's not here, but she had asked about specific dates with Don Chung last time. And they're still active, although you may not see them there at the Port Avenue area, but they're currently at Miramar working hopefully some contracts associated with that. And what the director passed last night was that they hope to move to a process where they'll start advertising for hiring around the April timeframe. We'll see if that stays on track or not. If you haven't been down to the Scappoose Bay Marina lately, there's a big addition that the kayak shop kindly refers to as the Kayak Shack. It's more of a kayak warehouse. It's pretty big. But the intent is to move some kayaks out to there where they have direct access to the water, because it blocks a lot of the people that have slips already down there, as well as keep the kayaks on one side and the egress of the motorboats and coming off the boat ramp. So hopefully make a better safety improvements along those lines so we don't get two people wanting to share the same space of water at the same time. So then last thing here is we passed last night too that there's an association called the APP, which is the Association of Pacific Ports. They are an international organization that covers the entire west coast of the U.S. out to Asia, Australia, Central, Southern America. Not that many members, but nonetheless, it probably has about 45 to 50 members on an international basis and coastal basis in CONUS here. Port of Columbia County is going to be hosting them this summer. So they'll be here in mid-July timeframe, and we will have representatives from Taiwan to various other places across the world. And I'm sure you'll be receiving an invitation. We'd love to have you come down and share what we're talking about for the Port of Columbia County, as well as give you some FaceTime with some of these other major players across the Western Hemisphere. So barring any questions, just want to keep you up to date on what we're doing.
So the Opportunity Zone, do you guys have some of that property here in St. Helens?
I do not believe so, because it would, as we heard at the Northwest Act or the COPAC, it would entail us wanting to sell buildings and then reinvest that money into an investment portfolio that was approved by the Opportunity funds.
But you could actually lease that building and buy it back from them as well, because
Well,
you hear the city of Dallas was doing that.
Yes, in fact, the
About their
Dows,
city hall?
they like to renovate and sell and then lease back from time to time there.
Lease back for 10 to then buy, then purchase.
And what we don't like to
I
sell buildings
I get it.
unless it's a way to retain or attract a business to stay. And we've done that with land too. We don't necessarily like to sell land, but we will do it. For example, USG is on property that the port owned, but the only way to attract them and keep them was to sell them the property. Pacific Stainless, we had to sell the property to Pacific Stainless in order to attract and retain them here in St. Helens. So we will do that. But
Very good employer too.
both are
Glad
excellent
employees.
employers and excellent taxpayers across the board.
Yep.
So I think that's the direction we would go. It doesn't mean it wouldn't happen, but it would have to be something on the spot that would definitely benefit and fit within the mission that we're talking about.
And then the renewable diesel, correct me if I'm wrong, the unique thing about it is it's drop-in ready. You can actually, you don't have to modify your engines. You can just drop it in and go.
That's correct. I mean, we've been sharing with folks that you have biodiesel, which oftentimes, working with a feeder stock and the conversion may require some type of different type of catalytic converter associated with that fuel. The renewable fuels is supposed to be drop-in ready, meaning you have to do nothing other than pump it into your tank as you would any other diesel.
And it still meets a lot of the qualifications of a biodiesel though, right?
Well, yeah, there's it's kind of like, got the mammals. You have the smaller species. So you have biodiesel.
Yep.
And then within that is renewable diesel, which is a subset, which is very specific into its capabilities. So yes, what you're saying is accurate. However, it'll be open to anyone that can run a diesel. And they're now calling it, instead of renewable, is a green diesel along those lines. So
Okay.
I think that's what we shared last night also.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for your reports. This is something that's been very new on the council, having the port come in and report, and that's due to you. I can see that, and due to the Board of Port Commissioners. I appreciate that energy of you reporting and coming in and talking with us. That's more transparent, and I think that's what our citizens want. That's what we want. And one other thing I want to congratulate the commissioners on is the cleanup activities you have going and how aggressively you are approaching that. We're trying to do the same thing with our lagoon as we look at it and see in the future that's going to be that will be needed to be cleaned up, and what kind of studies that we are pursuing now to find ways to clean that up. We are not making plans to clean it up. We're doing research of which is the best method to clean that up. And so I think that that's an important distinction of what the council's doing at this point, just so you can take that back to the board so they know that we're not making plans to do anything with that. We're making plans to research it and do them as much research with our consultants as we possibly can. And I can't thank you enough for coming forward. Thank you, Patrick.
Well, we'll continue to do so. But as always, feel free to reach out if you have specific and/or questions outside of your normal meeting times.
Yep.
Thank you much, and sorry for taking probably a little extra than 5 minutes.
That's all right, Patrick. Hey, other visitor comments? Okay. Presentation from 2020 Census. Sarah Bushore, U.S. Census Bureau. Hi there, Sarah. I'll still have you state your name for the record just because, Sarah.
Okay. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they can, but
Okay.
yeah.
My name is Sarah Bashore, and I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau. I actually live in Clackamas County. One thing that we're doing in the 2020 census is we're hiring locally. So there are 5 partnership specialists right now that are located in Oregon that go around and speak to people such as yourselves about what is going to be happening in the 2020 census. We'll get started. Why do we do the census? The House of Representatives, the 435 seats, get reapportioned every 10 years. The reapportionment occurs after we do the census, and it's all based upon population. The other key issue, and this kind of exemplifies it, is the George Washington University, the revenue stream that we get in Oregon. This slide shows that we got $10 billion in FY15 for revenue sharing. I have FY16 that I'll pass out to you later. We now have $13.4 billion that comes to the state of Oregon out of the total of $675 billion that is given out to all the states. That's why we're here to talk about this today. A lot of people use the expression money and power, the money being the revenue sharing and the power being the House of Representatives. To me, this is really about the people. It's about getting an accurate count. If we get an accurate count, our communities will do better. I met with Umatilla County recently. The school lunch program that they have there for their entire school district is based upon federal funds. Without an accurate count, they could lose some or all of the federal funding that is used for their school lunches. It's an important issue for all of us. We talk about Section 8 housing, talk about hospitals, roads, schools. Everything is based upon the count that we get. If we screw it up, we've screwed it up for 10 years, to put it mildly, because that's how often we do the census. As an Oregon Partnership Specialist, I'm here to educate, encourage, and engage. As you have questions, you'll have my email address and my phone number. You can call me, and we can discuss any of the issues that your constituents may have. There are significant changes that are going to be going on in the 2020 census, and that is why I'm here talking with you guys today. Our goal is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. So that becomes very complicated, how to do that. For example, we use an example of a husband and wife that have divorced and they have 3 children. The husband lives in the state of Washington, the wife lives in Oregon. They have true shared custody where 50% of the time the children are in Oregon and 50% of the time they're in Washington. How do we count them? Our rule is we count them where they sleep on April 1st. It's just that simple. But for other people who may have vacation homes, for example, down in Lincoln City, if you are here most of the time, then this is where you get counted because you're here most of the time. So that's generally the rule that we use to determine where we count the person is where do you sleep most of the time. If you're in prison, for example, we count you in prison in the prison facility where you are. So even though you may be a resident of, let's say, Columbia County, if you're at the Sheridan Prison, for example, that's where you're going to be counted. Mm-hmm. For those of you who have children that are in college and live in the college dorm, most of the time those children are going to be located at school, so they're actually counted at schools. I usually have a lot of dads at this point in time who say that that's pretty unfair. that they should be counted at their house because they're the ones paying the bills. But nonetheless, if your children are in college living in a dorm, they're counted at the dorm. There's a list that's actually 5 pages long that explains how everybody is counted. I won't bear you with all that information right now. Okay, so the biggest change that we're making is the self-response. In the past, we gave out a short form, and it was mailed out to all residents, and they completed the short form, and they mailed it back. That was terribly inefficient. We would keep sending out the short form, and then when it would come back to one of 2 locations, it had to be entered into the computer, and that took time. So we may have stacks and stacks of forms that needed to be entered in. We didn't know who had done what, so we would send out another form asking you to self-report once again. So this time around, for this decennial, the first option that we're going to present on March 23rd of 2020, which is just slightly over a year away, we're going to open up our internet lines. The first thing you do when you go on the internet, it's going to ask you what language do you want to self-report in. We have 13 languages available. If you don't want to use the internet for whatever reason, we have toll-free phone numbers that are also available in the 13 languages.
Excuse me, I didn't even know there was 13 languages. I mean, I knew there was a lot, but 13.
Oh, actually, in L.A. County, there are over 300 languages that are spoken. Yes. So we've got the 13 languages over both the internet and the phone. The way this works, and this isn't my idea, but the federal government is going to send out a form, and it's an invitation to self-report, and that's what it's called, an invitation. We're going to send you a total of 3 invitations asking you to self-report either over the internet or over the phone. If you haven't done it by the 3rd invitation, the 4th mailing that we send to you will actually be the short form so that you can complete that and send that back, okay? So those are the 3 options available. After we have sent the short form, we're going to send one more reminder for you to get this taken care of, and if you haven't done it, then that's when we're going to send in our enumerators. An enumerator is just a fancy term for a census taker, and they will try at your house 3 times to try and get the information, okay? Any questions so far?
What types of municipalities or government, I'm thinking more federal, on the federal level, government agencies, do you communicate directly, or do they have direct access to your information?
No governmental agency has any access to our personal information that we collect. We only disseminate information in the raw data form that does not contain any personally identifiable information. Is that your question? If we share that type of information, we do not share. We actually have 2 laws that prohibit us from doing that.
In the past, has that been subpoenaed by FBI or any federal agencies?
Okay, let's just talk about a little bit about what has happened in the past. During World War II, for example, the census was directly involved in giving out information, personally identifiable information about Japanese people, and this information was used to help to intern Japanese people. The Department of Defense asked for the information. It was a lawful request. The census had no choice but to give the information. That was back in like 1943 or 44, somewhere around there. After the war ended, 2 years later, Congress then enacted a law that said that we will no longer share information and that it's against the law. So I signed a confidentiality oath, and all of our enumerators also signed confidentiality oaths that we will not share the information. But now let's move forward to 9/11 and what happened at 9/11. The federal government, the law enforcement agencies, again asked us for information on people who lived around New York and that area. The only information we provided is the information that you can readily get off of our website, census.gov. And it talks about the types of people that live there, the nationalities or the ethnicity of the individuals, but it did not give out any personal identifiable information. Okay, does that answer?
Yes.
Okay. What do we ask? We ask for the address, the phone number, the number of people at each house. When we ask for this information, it's 11 questions. The 10 questions are the standard questions that we've asked in the past. So we're going to ask, the first question is something along the lines of how many people live in this house? And usually the head of household is the one who will answer this, whether it's over the internet or over the phone or on the form. If there are 4 people living in the house, we need the name and the birth date of each of the individuals. And this is required throughout the nation. We want to make sure that we receive good information. So we're not going to take that someone says, oh, I've got 6 people living here, but they don't give us the information on the names and the birth dates. So in the past, there were 10 questions. The citizenship question is up to determine whether or not that question will be asked. It's going before the Supreme Court. It's been fast-tracked. We should hear by the end of April whether or not that 11th question will be on the census form. At this point in time, I strongly recommend that everyone assume that the question will be on there. It's a negative question. Everyone agrees with that. But I would rather people accept that that question may be there and we work out how to sell that to your constituents than to act like it won't be there and then it turns out that it is. So at this point in time, if we can proceed with assuming that the citizenship question will be on there, I think it's going to be better for all of us. Do you have any questions on what we ask?
On citizenship, isn't it required that you be a citizen to vote?
Yes.
And isn't the census having to do with proportion of voting, of the effective votes as far as members of Congress?
Mm-hmm. It is. However, it is actually more than that. The reason why we do the census is based upon the Constitution, and the Constitution that requires that we count all persons. So it isn't male, female. It doesn't matter what nationality. It clearly states all persons. And the apportionment, the 435 seats, is not based upon the voters and how many voters there are, but how many people live in each area.
So citizenship isn't a part of the apportionment of Congress. It's the number of people.
Correct.
Okay, that is
Correct.
the question.
Yes.
And then, what safeguards are in place so that no one has access to that information from the outside has access to those 11 questions? How and can some individuals get access to that information, or individuals or groups?
We are actually working with all other cybersecurity agencies on this issue because it is a significant issue. Some people just like to break into a computer system just to see if they can, not even necessarily to do harm, but just to see if they can. Okay, so the first point that I need to make is that the census will never reach out to anyone over the internet unless you're an enumerator. So if someone does receive emails or anything else that says we need you to fill out this information, we're part of the U.S. Census, that is not correct. We just don't do it, okay? So that's the first thing that I need to make clear. We don't reach out, okay? If there was something that came up, they would go through me. I'm the official contact for the state of Oregon. So let's make sure that that's clear. We don't reach out. But the second issue is you go in there and you are going over the internet and completing the information. I don't know how often this happens, if it's going to be once a day in the beginning and as we get more and more people doing the self-reporting, but it becomes like a bubble and that information is removed and put into a separate system. So that if you're trying to access the system that people are going into, it's a limited amount of information that you're going to be able to grab because it is going to be moved. I just don't know how often that information is moved. But other than that, I can't really speak to it. I'm not a computer person, but there are safeguards that you can see on census.gov that specifically address the issue. There's also a PowerPoint presentation that I can send to you that also addresses this issue because we take that very seriously.
I know the IRS is making concerted efforts to market and the information that if you get contacted over the phone and someone says that they are representing the IRS, that is not the way the IRS
Correct.
Communicates. That and other agencies as well. I know some of the banks are that way as well. So I hope you have a good marketing ploy in the month prior to this, that those are scams.
Yes. We hope so too. Yes, the actual marketing that will be done on a nationwide basis will start in January of 2020. The languages that we have available, besides the 13 that are available on the questionnaire and in the self-response, there are also 59 languages. When an enumerator comes around and knocks on a door, they have 59 cards that have other languages on there that will help us to be able to enumerate that person. hard to count populations. This is really what's critical to us. Everyone in this room will do as they're supposed to do. They'll self-report. It's something that we just know as part of our being a good citizen. However, there are a lot of people who don't understand what the census is all about, particularly people who have come to us from another country. They don't understand that the census is something that is done every 10 years. I'll give you an example of what happened to me when I was in Hermiston at a social services event last week. There was a little girl, she was Hispanic, about 9 years old. She came up and said, "What does the U.S. Census do?" And I told her we count people and that we're getting ready to count everybody next year. And I said, and when next year comes, we're going to ask your mother to call us and to give us your address, your phone number, how many people live in the house, your names, and your birth dates. This little girl in Spanish then told her mother what the expectation was. The mother looked at me and she was horrified. And then she quickly left the building. I felt terrible. I felt absolutely terrible about it because I never got to explain to her why we do that, and that it has to do with benefiting her. Her 2 children, because they live in Umatilla County, are part of the school lunch program that we pay for. If she doesn't do the census, if she doesn't self-report, then we're getting less money than we should have for the school lunch program. So I lost 3 people that day. In my mind, because it's $13.4 million, that equates to $3,100 a person. So in my mathematical mind, I thought $9,300 just walked out of the building every year for the next 10 years. So we need to educate the foreign-born immigrants on the importance of the census. A lot of that's really not going to happen until after we get the Supreme Court decision and we determine whether or not the citizenship question is going to be on there. The next area, children under 5. Have you ever talked with people who say that their grandchildren now live with them because for whatever reason their parent is doing something else, maybe involved somewhere else, and so a lot of grandparents are raising their small children. We think what happened in 2010 is that some of these grandparents lived in adult-only communities and they didn't want to report that they had small children living there because they were afraid we were going to tell somebody, which we're not. But we think that that's why children were the #1 unreported group in 2010. So again, this is going to be a matter of us educating even our senior citizens that just because they have children living with them, even if it's not considered legal, we don't care. We don't make a judgment call, okay? Senior citizens, most of them are not going to want to complete the self-reporting over the internet. They may not even want to call. What we're going to ask is that we have your library system open up their doors and maybe we get some volunteers to help seniors report, self-report over the internet or over the phone. That's what we're asking across the nation, is that we help our senior citizens. By the way, when you self-report, you can also do that over your cell phone. Obviously, migrant workers are going to be a difficult group for us because they're constantly moving, but we do need to count where they are because, as in the Constitution, that has to do with our representation. For some reason, renters seem to be remiss in doing the census. I think it's because they don't have the ownership of the house. I don't know. And they also maybe move more frequently, but renters are also a hard-to-count population. And then lastly, under the 2020 with the internet, low internet access is going to be an issue for a lot of us.
How do you capture the homeless? Because I didn't hear you.
We haven't gone there yet. Okay, the homeless is done as, did I miss it?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. The homeless is done, is called a service enumeration, and we do it one night. Do you guys, anyone familiar with the what's it called? The point in time group of people? Point in time, every 2 years, they go out and they count the homeless for a HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and then they get money that way. I'll actually reach out to Point in Time in Oregon and ask for their assistance, but I'll also ask for your assistance locally. I met last night, or yesterday afternoon, with Scappoose, and I talked with them about their homeless. And they laughed that because you guys have a warming shelter, that many of the homeless people actually will come over here. But we will need to count them one night. We'll have an enumerator go out, and we do not take information such as names and addresses and so on and so forth. We just simply count how many there are. And we do it on one night to make sure that we don't get duplicate counts. And that will happen around March of 2020. There's a whole process that we go through on that, okay?
Do you have a process for homeless children?
They're counted with the homeless people because there's an assumption that they're going to be with them, or if they're with their grandparent, it's where they sleep on April 1st.
Actually, it's not. Most of them are bouncing around couch to couch.
Okay.
They are at somebody's house,
Uh-huh.
but they're usually bouncing around couch to couch. And there was a significant amount, I think 2 years ago, like 73 confirmed high school students that were bouncing couch from couch.
That's why I'm here, is that we can look
Yeah.
at things, situations like that, and we can address them, because we do want to count everyone.
Yep.
I'll give you my example of my cousin Stan. My cousin and his wife live on state property in a trailer. We all know it's illegal. They're not supposed to be there. The family's explained it to them, but they don't care. When an enumerator goes out there and knocks on the door with their machine, they will do a latitude and a longitude, and they will count 2 people living there on state land, because, again, we don't make a judgment call. So if there are people that live along the river in RVs that do not have an address, you just need to point us in the right direction so that we can count those individuals as well.
So I think for some of those people, I think you reach out to the school district on those.
Correct.
And you reach out to our police department and county police department on our area for homelessness, because they're going to know the camps best.
Exactly.
Community action team.
Yes.
Yeah, community action team, but our guys are actually the ones that a lot of people do not want assistance from community action team too, and they're just out there.
Yeah.
Do you have an approach? Pardon me, right here.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Do you have an approach for floating vessels that are in waterways, by chance,
No,
for homeless?
Actually, no, and I've never been asked that question before, so I'm going to have to get back to you on that. But they live on a boat all the time? Do they have a
Yes,
marina? Or
yes, and not in a marina, just out and about.
Good point, Doug.
And these boats, they live on them full-time, and they're generally in this area as a general rule?
On the Columbia River
On the
and
Columbia
the
River?
estuary of the Columbia
down?
River, for the most part. There are people down the valley who live in various floating vessels on the Willamette as well. And I think throughout the nation, there are many areas where homeless would be acquired in Florida area, southeast especially. I know that isn't your jurisdiction, but if it hasn't been thought about, I think that is pertinent information for you.
Yeah, he's right. Ross Island is the biggest one
Uh-huh.
in Portland, and then they're bouncing around. They're traveling just a couple miles, and then they'll end up here at port for a while, and we're out there welcome because we have an ordinance. And then they'll travel. You'll see them up the slough just a little ways, parked for a week, and then they'll make it back down here. And
So they're almost like a migrant worker in their
kind of.
path.
Many cruisers hole up in Astoria area as they're passing by, going from Washington to. They live on their boats.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I'll have to check on that because it's extensive how we count people, but I will get back to John on that so that we can get an answer back to you.
So here's the deal: is they're able to buy a boat for $300 that somebody doesn't want that's on their property, and they're able to launch it, and it still floats, and they live on it for free. That's what's happening. Okay.
Let me get back to you guys.
Yep.
Okay? The state of Oregon. You look at the 2 blue areas, the bright blue areas, that's the hardest to count area. One of them is, I think, Jefferson County. The other one, I believe, is part of Clackamas County where I live. We do the demographics on this just because we want people who live in that area to know where the hard-to-count population is located. I can also bring up to John, I can show him the demographics of your city of where the hard-to-count people are, but I don't think it's going to be broken down into a city per se as much as it is to the county. But I can still show you on our census website the demographics for the area that people that are harder to count and where they're located. And as we get closer to the time of the census, I'll be in communication more often with you guys going over this information. We're also, because of using the internet, once the census actually starts, we're going to be able to share with you where we're not getting people to self-report. And what we may ask is that we do something with the school system, or particularly the school that's in that area. If we can educate the children on the importance of the census, then they will go home and they'll talk to their parents about it. So we actually have a wide range of how we want to reach out to people, but it's an involvement where I serve as the liaison, and I work with you on what we need to do, how we can do it, and I offer the resources that I can. But there will be more communication between me and all of Columbia County to make sure that we get an accurate and current count. You have-
One other thing,
Uh-huh.
I hate to
It's
be
okay.
a stickler on this,
Uh-huh.
but I think April 1st fishing season's open. There
Yes.
would be a lot of people who would be sleeping up in High Lakes areas or around camping, that kind of thing. How do you account for that?
Actually, although April 1st is the date of the census, it's only because we needed to have a specific point in time. The computer system and the phone lines open up on March 23rd.
I get it.
They will actually be open into June and July.
I get it.
We really don't expect to have all of the countdown down. Our initial thought was that we'd be able to be completely finished by September of 2020. We must give the information to the president by December 31st of 2020, and we must give the information to the governor's office no later than March 31st of the following year. So even though it's April 1st date, that's just a date so that if someone has a baby on April 2nd, they don't count the baby. If they have the baby before, on March 29th, they do count the baby. So that's the April 1st date.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
You're welcome. Oops. I think this is Columbia County, and you can see the darker shades. And I'm not sure where you fit in this. That white area means that we got a pretty good response. The bluer area means that we got less than 75% responded. So we had a 25% non-response rate after the initial requests. And keep in mind, we're doing a lot of pestering. You know, we're going to send out 5 different forms of asking you to do something. An enumerator is going to go out 3 times. Okay, so there is a lot that we put into this. The most expensive part of what we do is the enumeration, having to have people go out.
Is it actually against the law not to respond?
Yes, actually it is, but we've never arrested anyone. We did find out in the state of Washington, if you don't respond to even a question, you can be a $5,000 fine. But we don't do any of that. So there's we just keep asking. After the 3rd time of asking by knocking on the door, if we can't get a response and it looks like somebody actually does live there, we will go to a neighbor's house like next door and we'll ask them, does somebody live over there? And if they say yes, do you know how many people live there? And we'll treat it more as a service enumeration. So we don't normally like to do that because we don't want people in other states saying, oh, we got all the information from our neighbors. So we do try to get actual information, but if we cannot, after the now 8 times that we've tried, we will take a neighbor's information. If we can't get information that way, we will contact Social Security and the IRS. Worst case scenario, if you have a house that is obviously somebody's living there and there are no neighbors around, we'll use what are called administrative records. Okay? A complete count committee. What we've found, if we can get the people in a local community to form a committee. Now, this could be people who are at the Elks Club, could take it on as a service project. It could be just one member of staff who helps. I will also help. I meet with the complete count committees wherever there is one formed. And we talk about what's important. I believe you have a senior citizen center here. We need to talk with the Senior Citizen Center about self-reporting and the importance of it. So we'll need to have people who can talk with the senior citizens. I can do that training as well to get people around your community who can help us with the census. It would be a volunteer base. So obviously we've got the government in the room. I believe you have a local newspaper. I've already spoken with the Vernonia Voice. They're going to be doing an article on the census. If you have a senior citizen center, we need their help. If you have people that do Meals on Wheels, for example, we need their help. When I was in Hood River, they have a large migratory worker group, but they all go to the same Catholic church. And on a Sunday afternoon, there'll be between 400 and 600 migrant workers that are there. So Hood River will reach out to the church, we'll get them educated on what is needed and why, so that we can get a complete and correct count there as well. Do you have any questions on the complete count? That's really what my ask is. I'm going to give you a booklet of information for you guys to look over, but we need to get people in the community involved in this process. I can't do it by myself. Even though I've got 6 counties that I'm responsible for, I'm here to help. I'll come back as often as you need me to come back, but we need to get a good count for all of them, for all of us. Like I said earlier, if we screw it up, we've screwed it up for 10 years. The key dates. The field offices in 2019, we have 1 field office that's open in Salem already. There'll be 2 more, 1 in Portland and 1 in Eugene, that will open up in July. The census day is April 1st of 2020, and we start to do non-response follow-up shortly after that. And then you can see it's got to go to the president and to the governor. Key issue, recruiting. Who to best know how to enumerate an area than local people? So we're asking for you to assist us in getting local people. We pay them a pretty good wage. It starts at $17.50 an hour. It's seasonal work, but we need local people to help us enumerate your area. You guys know more than anyone else where people might be hidden, where those boats might be docked, where you're homeless, where the warming shelter is. That's also going to be part of the Complete Count Committee, is to help identify where those hard-to-count people are. But we need local enumerators. Statewide right now, we're at 40% of where we need to be. We need to have 1,000 enumerators in the state of Oregon. Wow. Right now, we're only at about 400. Okay? The first program that we're going to do is going to be in August of this year, and I need enumerators for that. If I don't get enumerators in this area, then I'll have to bring them in from Salem. Salem knows less than me about where to find people to do the count. So I need your help with getting enumerators. I've got some flyers here, and I can also have I sent it electronically yet to you? Also, I've got flyers here on it, but you can see $17.50 to $19.50 an hour is a pretty decent wage. The requirements are pretty simple. You must be over 18. You must be a U.S. citizen. When you apply for the job, you'll go in over the internet, and we'll send back an assessment. It's 22 questions, very, very basic questions. You don't even have to have a resume, but it is more seasonal work. It's anywhere from 10 hours to 40 hours a week. You must have your own car or transportation. We'll give you the training, you'll have a handheld device, and you will assist us.
It seems like the job would require like a 3 to 7 type hours. Maybe
Sometimes it's weekends, sometimes it's nights, but the enumerator tells us what they can work, and we give them a schedule based upon their zip code. So if you say you can only work 10 hours in a week and you want it to be on Monday and Thursday and you want it to be for 5 hours, we actually do it mathematically to figure out how many we think you can handle. We usually give you a few extra, and then on your machine it's going to tell us what you were able to do. And then it might go to somebody else in the area.
So if a guy were good or a gal was good, they could make the
1950.
1950?
That I'm not involved in that part of the hiring process. That's a recruitment area. So I'm not. I think that's also based upon your qualifications. If you've done this type of thing before, someone who has no experience going out and talking with people.
That's it. You'd have to be a people person.
Exactly, and that's part of the assessment is to determine that. If you don't, one of the questions is something like, do you like to talk with people? And if you say no, it's a good chance we're probably not going to hire you. We also do a clearance on them. We do a criminal background history because we don't want people who like to rob houses be a representative of the federal government. Also, anyone who has had sexual issues, we won't hire them either. If they have a bad driving record, DUIs, we're not going to hire them because they are representing the federal government. So we do have screening that is done. Okay.
One question on the homeless. A lot of those don't have driving ability or vehicles. They do know where that part of the population is. They may have a police record. Was there any, because obviously they're the best people to get into the homeless community, but it sounds like you're excluding them with some of the rules. How flexible are those rules?
No, they're not flexible. I'm not going to try and sell you something that's not correct. They're not flexible. If someone is homeless, most likely they're not going to be able to go onto the internet to apply for the job. They're also not going to have an email address so that we can notify them as far as the work schedules and what we need to have done. So if someone is homeless, unless it's someone that we know can go to the library on a regular basis and check their email account and so on and so forth, we probably wouldn't hire them. This job is more for people who are semi-retired or college students. people who want to use what looks like an iPhone and be socially wanting to work with us.
Well, some of the homeless in this area will meet the ability to go to the library or have their own phones. They are homeless. Some of them obviously have had discussions with the police. But at least they have very good entrance into the homeless community,
Yes.
which old retired people are probably the last group to go into those areas. That was really the question.
Well, we'll have on the night that we actually enumerate and do the service enumeration of the homeless, that would be the night where we would want to use those types of people to get us into the right area so that we can do a complete count. So we would have a use for them, but I can't really say whether or not someone would be hired or not. You know, discussions with the police is entirely different than someone who's been arrested by the police. So I don't want to sell you a false bill of goods and say, oh, yeah, we'll hire them. I don't know what the answer would be in those situations. They're more than we would like for them to apply. We do need enumerators, and we just have to wait and see what happens from there.
And because the other classification is a assistant to an enumerator, because they could be the entrance into some of these areas, and yet they're only hired, if you would, for the one night or whatever. That was
Yeah, and unfortunately we can't hire for just one night. The hiring process is too much because all enumerators also they have to go through training and a background check. The federal government now requires anyone who works for the federal government must have a clearance, you know, a public trust clearance. So I don't think it's going to be hopeful that we would be able to do that, but I know that we don't have assistants to enumerators.
Yeah, well, basically, we're pointing out the part of the system sorting the system.
Yeah. And keep in mind that a lot of this isn't something that the census came up with. All of our rules, our guidelines are all determined by Congress.
That helps you.
And that's it for my presentation. I think I probably took a little longer than a half an hour, and I apologize. I do have information for you.
I'm just shocked at how much revenue a person actually generates. For a little over $3,000, and that's in a 10-year span, Sarah.
I'm sorry?
The $3,000, is that a 10-year span or is that
No,
a year? Every year.
Yes.
Every year. So it's very, very, very important.
Yes. And then this is the current, I know this is only from FY16.
I know you say it's about the people, but it is about the money as well.
It is. It definitely is.
yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So I was going to point that out. I'm chair of the CAT board, and I'm assuming this is how all of CAT's grants get funded.
Correct. And you'll see on here, it's pretty comprehensive where the community block grant, everything. There's just so much.
Okay.
So would you hire me as a counter?
Yes. Because I don't think you could be on the city council if you had a criminal record. Now,
You don't know.
okay,
The whole crowd.
here's background information on everything that we've talked about. It's a very comprehensive booklet on everything that we have, but it also talks about the complete count. And what my ask is that you consider. My ask is that you consider forming a complete count committee, and I'll work with you on how we need to do it. This is too important for us to not do anything. We're less than a year on April 1st, and so we're trying to get everyone. I visited 29 of the 36 counties so far. I've given probably 40 presentations to cities and counties, and it's really important that we figure out what we need to do to get an accurate count for the next 10 years, okay?
Is
I'll
your
leave-
contact information in here?
No, but
John has it, and
yes.
I have it as well. I think you emailed me as well.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank
And I do
Sarah.
have business cards if anyone else would like one.
I have one question.
Yes.
I'm the library director, and we're starting to see stuff about the census on our listservs. And I'm wondering if
Thank you.
there are going to be materials packets that go to libraries to help
Yes.
advertise.
Actually, in April, the representative from Washington and myself will be attending the library conference that's being held in Vancouver. I think it's on April 18th or somewhere around there. We're giving a presentation I've met with Multnomah County and many of the librarians, and all of us will meet with the library people, and we will have complete conversations. We've already got ourselves set up with the state library. One of the key issues that has been asked of us, though, is that we do not try to volunteer people that actually work for the library to assist with the census. If they want to work out, that's perfect, work and assist, that's perfectly fine, but that the library people are far too busy for us to try and say, have your librarians do this. So we really ask, when we talk with the complete count committees, which we call the CCCs, that we get a voluntary group of people, just average citizens, who are trained on the census and who can answer questions. But in conjunction with that, we will send you information, and you've got my card. We're going to be doing a nationwide campaign right after the 1st of January, because we're going to heavily depend upon the libraries to be able to have the computer that is necessary for people to self-report. Okay, any other questions?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate you guys seeing me.
Yes. Nice meeting you, Sarah.
And I hope you guys will invite me back.
We sure will.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to move on to Senior Center Semi-Annual Report. Kathy Innocenti, Center Manager. Yep, I was looking at it earlier. Hi, Kathy.
Hi. I'm Kathy Innocenti. I'm the new Executive Director of the St. Helens Senior Center, and I'm also the manager of Top Notch Thrift Store. So I'm doing both. The financials that I gave you, they've been tweaked a little, but the board has formed an audit committee so that they just figure that with the change of management, it's a good time to look at everything. We're trying to streamline our chart of accounts, change how we allocate funds and expenses. So hopefully by the next time I visit you, that it'll be in more of its final form. It's a little bit of a slow process here. I've taken a look at the building and looked at where we need maintenance and repairs, and I just have to give a shout out to Public Works. They have been terrific. Anytime that I've called them, they're just right there. They've repaired some things. Roger has looked around and gone with me to look at some of the repairs that need to be made. So yes, he's just done a great job. Our parking lot for years has been a duck pond when it rains, and so I called them. They came and found a clogged culvert and completely unclogged it, and the parking lot drained in an hour. So it was, they've been great. So I really appreciate that, and I'll be calling on them many times, I'm sure.
Was that when we had the 3 inches of rain in 12 hours?
Yeah.
By any chance? Okay.
Yeah, about a third of our parking lot was unusable because of that, and it's just, a clog. So they didn't even realize there was a culvert there. So, and I know he's probably giving you, Matt, some information on painting this summer. So hopefully we can get that done too. So there's a couple of other issues that I would like to look at with him. The ductwork in the building, the HVAC system, pretty wonky. Some rooms are completely cold, some are completely hot, and there's one that I don't think has any air going to it at all in one of the bathrooms, so we have to have a space heater in there. So I think we need to look at that in the future. And then the key situation for all the locks has been a complete nightmare. I think every door has a separate key. So that's just been.
I think on the air conditioning and the heating, we've been talking. We're familiar with this, and I think we had talked about maybe looking at possibility of ductless because of the piping and trying to get in there to redo it would be.
Okay.
It should have been done right the first time, and it wasn't. It was kind of a flow issue. And so I think that's what we had talked about, and we were supposed to get together with Cheryl a long time ago, and it just never happened. So
Okay.
we
Well,
did.
you can get together with me.
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll figure something out. We're looking at expanding our activities, the events and fundraisers that we have. And I really didn't feel like I had a finger on the pulse of what the members wanted, so we did a survey, and we've gotten the results of that. And there's a lot of crossover, or some crossover, with what the new rec center is doing. So I've had a couple discussions with Shauna and Ryan, and we're going to partner with them to get some more activities going, maybe sometimes in our building, sometimes in their building. So we're working that out to see what it looks like. So, and they're terrific. They're really on top of things. The board also approved of me hiring somebody to help with activities for a few hours a week. So that'll also give us a little bit more, just more things for the people who are members to do. So I hired somebody yesterday, and we're moving forward with that. We're also planning to increase our membership, and so to that end, we're probably the end of next month, we're starting Try It Tuesdays, where people who've perhaps thought of becoming a member but maybe are a little shy, they can come in, we'll have hosts, show them around, introduce them to people, they can have lunch, and then we'll have a guest speaker or an activity or something after that, and just introduce them to the center that way.
How much is membership?
It's $15 for an individual and $25 for a couple
Per month?
per year.
Per year?
Yes.
Really?
So, yes. So we're also looking at our fee structure
Yeah, that
because,
might not.
yeah,
I
some,
mean, it's a nice facility, and I would expect at least 50. I know most places are $100 a year to be a member.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not asking a lot.
well,
And I get it.
the current fee structure is the membership, and then there's a charge for some of the activities.
Uh-huh.
And so we're looking
Just
at
kinda
that.
Supplement it a little bit with the-
Right, but
I
we're
got it.
looking at whether it might be a better idea to raise the membership fee and not charge for the activities,
Sure.
that they're just a part of the membership. Also, especially if we're bringing people from outside the community in for activities, that we have a discount for our members. I mean, it is their organization, and so we might have a discount for the members and a different price for people who are non-members. So we're looking at all that, and it's very preliminary, so I
When do you guys
can't
play
give you any
Pinochle? I
numbers.
see it's on here.
Yes.
What date is that played?
Monday nights,
Is it double
and
deck?
I don't know. I don't play pinochle, so.
I will challenge. I'll throw out a challenge. Maybe we'll get a
Yeah.
people enticed to come.
You're not old enough.
I'm a good pinochle player.
Well, I know sometimes they only have 3 at a table and they need 4.
Yeah.
I learned that much. As far as our home delivered meals program, I've been working with the cook and with Community Action Team to make sure that we're complying with our contract, looking over our procedures and our equipment needs, and just, I mean, I have no background in food service at all, so this is a steep learning curve for me. But we're learning together and making some improvements there too. Taking on Scappoose was a big challenge because of so many more meals, and so they've just come through like champs. I mean, it's quite a process, cooking the meals, packaging the meals, and then sending them out to delivery. And terrific team, just a wonderful team of people who are doing that. And then we do have some partnerships. I'd like to increase that. At Top Notch, we work with a lot of community partners, and I just also have to pat my team on the back down there because they are one of the top 5 finalists for the Chamber's Community Impact Award, and I'm thrilled that that is the particular award that they've been nominated for, because we have put so much effort into building our partnerships and doing more than just raising funds for the senior center. We've really tried to help the community. So that's just wonderful. So that's what we have going on at the senior center. Any questions?
Later today, the council is going to take up the business of financing of the food. Are you involved with helping them
with the food bank.
with the food bank?
We do have a partnership with them where we buy produce, and when they have milk delivered, then we buy milk from them. So we do buy some things from them because it's cheaper that way.
I was more interested in they hope to start teaching people how to cook, which
yes.
means they'll have cooking facilities, using that type of facility or whatever to both teach people and also to cook food for your Meals on Wheels. Any thoughts on that yet?
Well, we're having a meeting next month with the food bank and all of their partners, so I just know a little bit about that from the agenda that was set out. I don't know anything about them cooking for us. We do, we can certainly partner with them for cooking classes, and our cook is very willing to do classes since we have a commercial
You have a
kitchen.
full facilitated kitchen as well in the
Yes.
senior center. And when I was doing Meals on Wheels, that's where the preparation came from.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else?
I've got a question on audit. How far back will your audit go? Is that just in the prior year, or is that a 5-year summary or a 10-year summary of your audit? To me, that's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, we were going to look at the last year, but some of the things that we have seen on our financials on the balance sheet, I'm also just learning QuickBooks, and so I've found that some of those journal entries were made back in 2009, 2010, and so I don't really know. I mean, the money is there. It's been allocated to another fund, and so that those receivables are still there, showing that somebody owes us money, just for example. And so we need to find out how to get rid of that off the books because it's already been taken care of.
That would be my suggestion
So.
because you're inheriting something that is a legacy of time over the past decade.
Right.
And to get a good, thorough analysis of what has been happening with the budget, it might be, that's just my suggestion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you have any other help with your audit? I mean, it sounds like you're doing it on QuickBooks.
Well, it's our audit committee who's helping me, and then I have a friend who has been a finance director at nonprofits, and so she offered to help come in and help me reverse some journal entries and without fouling everything up. So yes, we're taking a look at all that.
All right.
Best of luck.
Long as you got a committee around it,
Yeah,
you're
really.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right. Review draft of council operating rules and procedures.
So this is something we talked about, over the last several meetings actually, but there's also a final form on the council agenda tonight. I think the last meeting, having a minority, not a minority, but only 3 members of the council here, the council didn't want to make these changes without the full council review and support. So I guess in recap, this is an attempt to modernize or reflect the 2008 version with the 2012 with our actual practices, business practices. And I don't think there's anything too controversial on here. It's language that's in the 2012 charter update, kind of folded into the rules and procedures. Updating the meeting times and things of that nature.
It's just a cleanup of the old.
Yes.
For those of you out there who are wondering what this is all about, the meeting times weren't even right, and it's that old and hasn't been looked at for a long time. And our city administrator cleaned it up for us, and we looked at it at our council retreat, and we've been discussing it for the last couple months. So that's all that is. This part.
I've got one new concern
Okay.
under 18, under operating rules. The last sentence there says council members will not substitute appointments or attendance at meetings without approval of the mayor or presiding officer.
So it can't do it without you. Or me. If it's your committee, that's what it's saying. The
Right.
way I heard you read it.
Yes, that's the way it reads.
Yeah.
But I would like to just eliminate that whole sentence because we don't follow that rule now. And it kind of makes things complicated. If you find out at the last minute you can't make a meeting, that would mean you'd have to get a hold of the mayor to see if it was okay to have somebody else come, or instead of just getting hold of another counselor and saying, hey, can you attend this meeting for me, which is the way we've been doing it in the past anyway.
Keith and I talked about that a bit, and Keith is usually the guy I lean on because he was on oversaw parks before I was on parks, and so it just made sense to call him if I'm not you know what I mean? And in a sense, I don't bypass the mayor. Just call him and say, hey, I've already made arrangements for a substitute to be at my meeting, and that way he can report on what's happening. It just leaves it just seems simpler to me.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I mean, as long as we're all keeping each other in the loop, eventually we need to, that's it.
Right.
Let's move this city forward.
Exactly.
The question I had is, this has been done. Does the rest of the council been informed that it's been done? It says council is unavailable in person, may participate in work sessions and if approved. The mayor and 2 members of the council. Okay. Do the other parts of the council just get notified it happened? Because some of this is time relevant.
I don't know if I'm quite.
I
Okay.
didn't hear. I don't understand.
Okay. Keith can't do something.
Uh-huh.
Doug's going to take over.
For his
For whatever. Okay.
No, for the committee that he.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just this one time. Is a heads up given to the rest of the council that he did that, or is it unknown to them?
In a report.
Okay, but that's the point. It is pointed out to them that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the question.
So I
So,
would report.
but that's okay. Just want to make sure that the rest of the council, with some mechanism, knows.
So last minute, you get a call from your daughter and you need to go. And you need me to, if you call me up, you say, Mayor, I need you to fill in. Can you? No,
Right.
I can't. You call Morton. Morton, can you fill in? Yes, I can. That's what we're saying.
Oh, okay. Now, do you tell the rest of the council, hey, there's been this snafu and it's been taken care of, as compared to they still assume?
Luigi comes with the report here on the session later.
Okay, I just want to make sure the council knows that this shift got done.
That's why I just said, as long as everybody's in the loop
Yep.
and as long as we're moving the city forward.
I think what that does is, it alleviates a third person, that would be the mayor, in the loop to try and organize that.
Right.
And it's just a kind of almost a no nonsense thing that whoever should be at that meeting calls someone who knows that they can cover that meeting for them and report to council at the next council meeting.
It shouldn't have to be on approval of me as well.
That's
You know
right.
what I
It's
mean?
just that it's been reported that this person took over.
Yes.
It's
it
after the fact, but the rest of the council knows
It
that
has, yeah.
it has happened. That's the only question I had.
and,
Okay.
and that kind of already has happened.
Right.
So
So do we have a consensus to
That's what I
strike
say.
that?
We haven't been following this rule, so we just will get rid of it. Yeah.
We have a consensus to strike it? I think so.
yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, it just from my perspective, you're just, whoever's in charge of the department's kind of brokering their own substitute, so.
Right.
Yep.
Seems fine to me.
I have one,
I would expect if it was vitally important that I would hopefully be notified.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just throwing that out there.
okay, and this,
If it was a meeting down in Salem, we'd probably let you know after the fact. Oh, by the way,
this concerns page 6 of 9 at the very top, presiding officer. And it's more of a definition of terms than anything else. Kathy, you have that up? The mayor shall preside over council deliberations and serves as the political head of the government. Political head to me means that it's a consensus politically of what the council has determined. So that's up to the mayor to stand behind that and report it to the community when he has an opportunity to report to the community. That's what political to me means in this sentence, that he's speaking not so much for himself, but he's speaking for the council in the decisions that have been made.
So the way I read mayor is I'm the liaison for the people, not the council. And that's my job. That's why I have the title of mayor.
But
No, you're the
I
liaison
do
of the
oversee,
council.
I do oversee the council as well. But my main title, if you actually read what the mayor is, by Webster's dictionary, look it up, and you'll see that.
Yeah, but every city's different.
So, and I have no problem. I'll say, and I have no problem doing that, because if we're doing a sugary drink tax and I'm not okay with it, I'm going to say they're wanting to go through with the forum. I don't agree with it. But that's what's going on.
And that's fine.
Yeah. So I have no problem.
As long as and we all need to be that way.
Yep.
If we're talking for the council,
Yes.
we need to talk for the council.
Yep.
If we're talking for ourselves, we need to talk for ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And state,
State
yes.
the difference. Yes.
Yeah.
so when we, Keith and I had
you
a
get that?
discussion about this, and
Steve, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Keith and I had a discussion about this, and basically we thought it would be good to insert and speaks for the council. So not only if you feel that you're speaking for yourself in terms of your political way of thinking, that you also here in presiding officer, your officer of the council, that you speak also for the council. So
It
And
feels like
that's
I should
and,
be
not-
obligated to. Like I'm supposed to be out. If this was a paid position, sure. You're acting like I have to go promote you. That's what I hear you saying.
One of
That's
the
so complicated. I already speak for the council.
one of the
Try to
problems
include us.
that I see, and you're getting yourself tied up. If you don't like it, you say, "I, Rick, don't like it."
Yeah.
You don't have to say, "I'm not speaking for the council." You just tell me. Now, when you say I'm the mayor, then you're speaking for whatever we've agreed on. But you don't. The minute you say I'm speaking for myself, you don't have to separate yourself as the mayor. You're speaking for yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get too confused with, it says political head. When it's your political head, you're speaking for the council, not an opinion. When you identify yourself as having an opinion, then we know you're not acting as head of the council. I don't think it needs to be any more
Sure.
definitive than that.
Yep.
then do you think that it's appropriate, Steve, and serves as the political head and speaks for the council?
If he's political head, I think by definition he speaks for the council. When he's not speaking for the council, he identifies himself as Rick Scholes, and he doesn't like it, even though his other day job is the mayor.
Yep. Yes. It is.
Yeah. So he has an opinion, and the business of the mayor is to speak for the council. But Rick Scholes can say anything he wants.
I would agree with you, Councilor Topaz, that it does kind of say that already.
Yep.
Yep.
Would it be helpful to hear what the charter says about the different positions?
Sure.
Um,
All else
why
fails,
bothered?
we go back to the charter.
Yeah. Okay, this is section 10, the mayor. It says, "The mayor presides over the facilities," excuse me, The mayor presides over and facilitates council meetings, preserves order, enforces council rules, and determines the order of business under the council rules. The mayor is a voting member of the council and has no veto authority. With the consent of the council and following the procedures of the council, the mayor appoints members of commissions and committees established by ordinance or resolution. The mayor must sign all records of council decisions. The mayor serves as a political head of the city government. And then it goes on to talk about that at each biennial election, the mayor shall be elected for 2-year terms. So that's 2012. So I think, you know, why I inserted into this language into the rules was just an attempt to
Follow that.
as
Got it.
closely as possible. And if you want to be more descriptive with the language, it's entirely your prerogative. So
I wanted to have.
I'm just going to throw out a what if, just because it happened to come up. So last meeting,
Yeah,
I was chair. So
You're both done.
what if I
We weren't in Mexico though. I was in Seattle. Where were you? Oh, never mind.
so
My next door neighbors.
what I was getting at is last meeting I could have done the council assignments.
No,
Yes.
no, because I'm a political
Read
head.
read the rules. If who's ever sitting in that chair is the authority.
You're not the mayor. You never
When
will.
during that meeting I am.
You are filling in. I would
Read it.
reread that, John. Would you? I would like to know what he's talking about. Because we need to change that.
He's talking about the line of succession, and
yeah.
is there a time limit on a temporary line of succession?
Well, the council president's role says in the mayor's absence from the council meeting, the president shall preside over it. Whenever the mayor is unable to perform the functions of this office, the president shall act as mayor.
There, right there. That's key.
Yep.
President or pro tem. So, Keith, will we have to get rid of our duct tape and handcuffs that we carry around in our trunk?
So,
So it's you got to clean up the definition of lines of succession as far as some authority.
Well, really, do you
Well,
or not?
the succession right now sounds like operation
Well,
of the.
What? Okay, another scenario. Say they are out of the country
Right,
for whatever
right.
weeks or a month. Then somebody has to be the authority,
Okay, yeah, and you are.
and that's what that's written for.
But the question now is if you make an appointment, which is much longer standing than their absence,
Right.
does that carry any authority? You have to make a temporary assignment, correct? Is that become a permanent assignment when they return?
Well, the mayor can redo it
yeah.
when you return.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. It just.
No, that we better be careful on, because some of these things you just can't change every other day.
Well,
No, he just brought it up for discussion.
Well, and the next question is, if he were to drop dead, the next person who's in that position is then the mayor and can make that.
So under council president, it does in the rules, these rules here, it says in the absence of the mayor and the president, if a quorum of the council is present, the senior member of the council shall preside over the meeting as the president pro tem.
Yep.
And then it goes on to.
Okay, the president pro tem, can they make appointments? That's the question.
They should be allowed to. Yes, they should be. If it comes up on the agenda that by boards and commissions and there's a recommendation, they should be able to.
The last
I mean,
sentence.
we've got to keep moving the city forward.
exactly.
You know.
But that's operational versus permanent. That's no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
They should have the operational ability to do that. But can they now change the head of a committee,
Well,
which the mayor can,
It still takes
and that's a permanent?
It still takes a quorum to do that. So I would say yes.
And
Still takes
so
three.
it still takes council approval.
It still takes a 3 vote, yeah.
Okay, so, again, going to the written word here, under council president, the council president or the council president pro tem, while serving as the presiding officer, may propose motions and debate from the chair, subject only to the limitations of debate as are imposed on all members, and shall not be deprived of any of the rights and privileges of a counselor by reason of acting as presiding officer.
Mhm.
That doesn't.
So it basically gives him still the authority to do
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
The way it reads, yeah.
Which is appropriate.
Why weren't you hammering the gavel, Keith? You had your chance. You had it. It's gone.
It's called experience.
It's gone.
It's called experience.
Yeah, out of respect.
Me and Doug weren't here. You had every opportunity to. All right. Any other?
Well, you haven't heard about all the money we spent.
Yeah. Any other questions on the rules and procedures? Or
So was there a consensus on adding that language to the?
no? I think we'll just leave it. It pretty much he followed the charter. So
I have one about public forums and maybe work session meetings or whatever, special meetings. And this is just something that I noticed on several of our public forums in my tenure on council. And this deals with interruptions, demonstrations that are interrupting the meetings. And along with that, the council getting filled with signs and banners, especially by kids who are coming in and holding up banners and signs who weren't going to testify, who either got hired by certain concerns or whatever, and fills up the back of the room and part of the room here. And I find that very distracting in terms of making a decision. I know there's some amendment rights, but there's also a sense of quorum of getting on with our forum and our meeting without interruptions. So signs, posters, and interrupting demonstrations I feel should not be tolerated in our forums within the context of our building. If they want to demonstrate, outside would be a perfect place to demonstrate. I think the last one was that people were hired, dealt with the heights of buildings with our riverfront district. One person who does not live in this city hired quite a few individuals to come in and parade around with with signs and banners, and I found it very disrupting. I think a lot of other people found it disrupting as well. So I just thought this might be a good place to work through that if it's a concern with the rest of the council.
That's a First Amendment problem, and they're basically going to say you as a politician just got to suck it up. It's their right. It's their right to hire people to advertise. I don't think you better limit anybody's expression of their thoughts, even if they use fellow citizens or hired people. That one I'd really want my lawyers to worry about before I touch that.
Okay.
I think we should maybe consult the lawyers and see if there is something, because we do need some sort of order, and it is our meeting, so.
There's a section on decorum in there that talks about the presiding officer has the responsibility to ensure order and decorum. And the chief of police or the sergeant at arms is the one that can help maintain that. So it would be, the way I would read it is that,
Your mic on.
the presiding officer would be responsible to, signal to the sergeant at arms that there needs to be some sort of order that needs to be maintained in the room.
Yeah, this has happened in Portland, at Portland City Council. And the Portland City Council said, no, we cannot have this any longer.
Yeah.
And it has not been challenged in any of the courts thus far. It's their operating rules. So that was my point.
There have been some challenges in federal court when the Hillsborough Council did some of that. I agree, it hasn't been.
Some of that means. I don't know what Portland City.
Yeah, I know Portland is its own state to the world. I can see that they can carry their signs around. I can see by decorum they can't throw their signs. They have to sit down. So the definition of decorum is going to be careful, again, on the right of free speech. Now, they can't be back there yelling and running around. Agreed. The fact that you can't tell them to put down their signs is another thing. It may be the rules of Portland. It's still not federal rules, though. And I know we like to follow Portland, but sometimes they go down the wrong road.
So, I mean, I would agree a little bit with, I don't think we get too out of control at our forum so
No,
far.
I'm talking about before you came along, for the most part.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that since you've been here. There was a bit of things with the sugar tax, just a bit, but not much. And what it did do was it filled up our council chambers to a point where there was a fire issue.
Yeah, there was, yes. So, Chief, you being Sergeant at Arms, I'll just grab my ear. That's our code, and that means drag them out by the ear. Okay? So
I would think, though, that possibly signs, if signs is one of the issues, we already have signs back there, no firearms or knives or anything like that. I mean, a sign can be a weapon, so I would think that we should be able to control that.
I think you're still getting into free speech.
Yep.
I don't think you want to address that with signs.
Yeah.
I think as long as if they're not hurting anybody else,
Yeah.
you still have to allow free speech. There's just no way around that.
Well, free speech is different than a physical sign, though.
But if they're not hurting anybody,
Well,
that is free speech.
where do you draw the line at? How do you know you're not going to hurt somebody until it happens?
You can't arrest them until it happens. And the police have got all kinds of times they know that it's going to be a problem, but they can't do anything until it happens. That, again, is the law.
But it's the same law as no guns or firearms. Or
I believe if you can
knives.
articulate a few factors that can work in favor. First, we're in a small space here. Signs take up a lot of space. It obscures the vision of other attendees.
That's the big one.
Right, where they can't see. I think my personal opinion, without not being a lawyer, is that if we afford them the opportunity outside on a public walkway, then they're covered by their First Amendment rights. However, I think that you have more control in this space than what you think, because of whatever reason. It's just to control the quorum, and I would agree that if you don't want signs, that it's posted, but you would have to post it now and enforce it from here on out, fair and equitably, not just when the oil trains or soda tax. It's just like no signs. And also, just a suggestion is to post a limit for get the fire chief to say, okay, how many people could we have?
Oh, that already is.
Okay, it's posted there?
Yeah, that's posted,
okay.
but in how are we going to control that? And one of the ways we could control that is the amount or the people who are testifying should have a right to be in this room and to hear rebuttals of their testimony. And people who are not testifying, who are underage and who are just kids who carrying signs and that kind of thing, sitting up in the front, impairing vision.
Correct.
All of those kinds of things I found extremely distracting years ago. And I don't know if they'll happen again or not, but I thought this would be, since we're talking about this would be a good time to nip it in the bud.
Correct. And I think that offering them the 5-minute public comment section covers us on freedom of speech. We're not taking away the freedom of speech. We're just saying no signs allowed whatsoever, pro or against, because of these factors. It's small. We're obstructing view. They could be used for a weapon if they come on a stick, like we have seen in the videos out of Portland and other jurisdictions. So just some thoughts. I mean, I think we're covered. But again, I agree with also checking with the
We'll just make the call when that time comes. If there
Yes,
ends
sir.
up a bunch of signs in the back, we'll say, I politely ask you to go outside
Absolutely.
and display your signs.
We're still getting awful close to that free speech. That sign is still free speech. You can ask them to put it in the back of the room. If you've got too many people, I think the procedure was you ask the fire marshal to make a determination that people have to be removed for his fire safety, and at that point, the police can remove
So
a number of people.
Bottom line is none of us are lawyers, and I'm going to table this part of this discussion because we've been on it for about 10 minutes now, and we're way behind schedule as far as my agenda here.
You're getting close to limiting free speech there right now.
You've got to draw the line somewhere, and 5 minutes is a line.
I'm not going to trust any of you guys for my legal advice.
And I think that's correct. I think that's correct.
An attorney.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So,
But we're behind the thing, Doug, as compared to out there. And Oregon's had a bad habit with freedom of speech in the federal courts.
so let's definitely,
Would you like?
we can
would you like
always
to further look into that.
Yeah,
Yes.
further just look into that. It's not in our it's not a change right now in our rules and procedures anyhow, right? As they're written.
It's not proposed.
No, no.
But I
So-
would say generally that cities have the ability to regulate time, place, and manner.
Absolutely.
And-
3
and
minutes.
And that free speech probably falls squarely into that. We can say
Yep,
how it happens, and
yep.
but I'm sure it gets really gray and fuzzy really fast. But I can check in.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think we pretty much covered that portion, so now we're gonna talk about council governing policies.
I have a question, one word. It's down under F. It says communicate with employee or communicate to employee.
F.
It's upon completion of evaluations shall be communicated to the employee.
I would think that with means a two-way street. To means a one-way street.
That's correct. We've had an evaluation, that's the two-way. We've made the evaluation, now we're going to tell you what the evaluation is. That's a two. We've got that's the second step is the two. The first step is the evaluation. That's the only point.
Well, and when we communicate to, then that's when we expect to get back from that employee what has been communicated to them. They have a right to confer with you along the line.
You better put that two in one of the statements.
Communicate with employee.
The evaluation is done. What is the result of this evaluation? It is two. I'm handing you this evaluation. Now, there can be communication after that, but I'm going to give this evaluation to you. We've had conversations which generated the evaluation.
And if I'm an employee, I'm going to give it back to you as well.
That's
to
fine.
redo.
That's fine. But the evaluation is one act. Telling you the answer of the evaluation is the second act. You're muddying it up, trying to do both things with the one
Not
sentence.
muddying it up. Trying to clarify, Steve. There's a big discrepancy in muddying up and clarification.
Okay.
Got it. That's my feeling.
So the evaluations generally are a tool for employee development. For review, we review things with the employees. It's feedback. They, how are you performing? How is your management performing? I see it more of a circular kind of thing. The two part of it is kind of assumed almost. They got.
Right.
Of course,
This is it, and you can't question it.
This is
Right.
what we think, and let's discuss this with you.
Yep.
It was the purpose there in writing that. So
Got it.
I think with is fine.
Okay, I agree.
do you want me to go through it again, or did you have?
I've got an issue of G that has been striked out. G and H.
Okay.
Evaluations, department head, city administrator, municipal judge, city attorney shall be submitted to the council president, and the council president shall compile evaluations for submission of consolidated evaluations to the council for approval. Now, I've heard that is something that we should not be doing, and I got to check with Kathy, our city recorder, about that. And so I submit these back to the council, and the council, my fellow council members, if I'm council president, should not be reading these evaluations or sharing in these evaluations so that they actually know what the various departments are doing. Is that correct? I don't know if that's, I heard that that's something that we shouldn't be doing, and I think you were either quoted or misquoted on that. Can you clarify that for me by chance?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Okay, it says evaluations of the department head, city administrator, municipal judge, and city attorney shall be submitted to the council president, and the council president shall compile evaluations for submission of consolidated evaluations to the council.
So,
That's my council members for approval. They should be reading those.
oh, no, correct.
Okay, so how, I don't understand this, that I should be collecting those things and giving them to fellow council members so that they can read through it, so that they know what various department heads are doing? Is that correct?
That's not what we do.
Okay, that's not what we do, and is that by law?
No, there's no law about it.
Okay, so we can do that. If I did have those evaluations, we could take either an executive session to do that because it is personal information. I certainly would feel funny compiling that for the council for a discussion in an open hearing because it's part of a personnel file,
Yeah, it would
which
not
makes
be
us very vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that could happen in an executive session. Is that my point? I mean, is that, you follow my point?
Yes, I would say under the performance of a chief officer.
Okay. Okay.
So
That's all been striked anyway, so I know that. I'm just going over it just
can I
to
explain
clarify.
the purpose of the strike?
Oh, I know what it is.
What
Okay.
is that?
It's an Amber Alert.
Keith's getting an Amber Alert, so am I.
So am I.
Everybody
Hermiston, Oregon.
Okay.
Can we have a
Not in our jurisdiction
Idaho.
yet.
description of why it was
So okay, the changes in the personnel evaluation is that the substantive ones are that the department heads are going to be reviewed by the assigned counselor and the city administrator. The city administrator is going to be, rather than individually, how we're doing it currently and in the past, is going to be by the entire council, so we don't have 5 different evaluations to wonder that don't really get
Yeah.
stapled together and put in the file. The municipal judge and the city attorney are contract positions, and really, they're contract employees, and the appropriate time to do their evaluation is with their contract renewals. And yeah, that's about it. Other than that, it's kind of an administrative exercise and just managing the evaluations. And
I know in the past that I have brought forth the Public Works evaluation, and by permission of the Public Works people that I could share that as a model for an evaluation. I felt very strong about that model, and I wanted to share it. And I've done that, I think, on 2 occasions in years past. I haven't done it recently, but Keith was talking about, what our evaluation should be is a goal setting, which that is part of, and a debriefing of prior goals in the year looking at what goals were not met and what were met and whatever, setting new goals, and then an overview of what had been accomplished in personal goals of the department heads of how they wanted to move the department forward. So there was two parts to that, and then and with that was a subjective analysis of my opinion of how Public Works is doing. So it was like usually 5 pages long. 1 page from my subjective analysis and 3 to 4 pages from that. And I found that as a tremendous useful tool as we moved along together throughout our year, and you would be reporting to council or we would be meeting up as that became a tool that I could understand what's happening, what's going on with the department, and it helped me in my reporting if there were any kind of questions, because you folks as department heads report to the council, and sometimes I need to clarify or ask questions so that you can clarify to the public and fellow council members. It just seemed to me like a very useful tool. So all of this has been striked out, and maybe John can.
Still going to happen. We're still going to be doing reviews.
Exactly. But my question and concern is that can the council look over those reviews, because that's what they're for. They're there for the council to know what's going on. I want to know what Keith is writing in on the police chief and the police department. I'd really like to know that.
All we'd have to
And
do is
so
go to
it'd be. Yeah,
Can we go to Kathy at any point in time and say, Kathy, I would like to look over the report? Can I?
That's the thing about a personnel file. The personnel files are confidential.
Okay.
It's not like anybody can just come in, a counselor can come in and say.
Even a department head?
Even a department head.
Really?
Yes.
That's my point. I
That's
think
the
we
point.
should be able to do that in an executive session.
There would have to be some sort of release from an employee to say, this person can come in and look at my personnel file.
So even though the counselor.
Why wouldn't anybody on staff
The
not
counselor's
give permission for a counselor to look at their stuff?
That's their legal right. Remember, that was a specific act. We had an evaluation. Put that in a little box, and it gets stapled shut and put in the. If we go through the same thing and have it discussed openly, that can be done. But what was done in that evaluation, whatever's in there, has to stay in there. That's the point. You can redo it. That's a new step.
Well,
So if I want to find out from you what you thought of the police chief, you can tell me. But I can't go to the thing you wrote about the police chief, which is in the file,
Why?
because that's the law.
well, and I think probably because it,
Okay.
I think probably because some of it does get personal. You try to keep it as professional and business oriented as possible, but I think you have a personality there that could be it made it personal. I think the council goals where we're going are going to kind of offset what you're getting around to. I think.
Well, here's the offset of that. So, you guys write your evaluations.
Yeah.
Well, could be 100 degrees off from what I would evaluate that person.
Yep.
But unless I read yours, I have no idea what you gave for an evaluation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, where's the place there to discuss that about our differences?
Prior to an evaluation, I would think that the department head and the counselor that is evaluating that employee or that department head would go to the council or discuss with the other council members to say, hey, I'm going to do this department head evaluation. Do you have anything you want to discuss? Because that should be done ahead of time, not after an evaluation is done. An evaluation should take into consideration everybody's viewpoint.
So the purpose of an evaluation, the essential purpose is to put it in a personnel file so it might surface in a legal hearing if subpoenaed later on. That's the sole purpose,
No,
the way,
no,
well then,
absolutely not the sole purpose.
okay, so what's the secondary purpose then?
That if something came, if down the road, I mean, what you're saying is a little bit further down in a legal proceeding, but if something happened to where a new department head came down the road, or a new supervisor, a new council member came down the road, and there was, let's say, a personality conflict. If there was no performance evaluation in there, however many performance evaluations there were, if there was no evaluation in there that showed what that person's performance was over the years, then that person may, if there was I'm getting off track, but if there was something that the new person didn't like about that department head, then if there was nothing in the file, then there was no way to go back and say, well, I don't see anything that shows that you.
So my question is, who has access and who's going to make the decision about that file if the council has no access?
So
I mean, the council just blank. It shuts the blinds, everything on the council. Council can't make a decision because they don't have access to the file.
so
That doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I get what I follow what you're saying. So and I follow what Kathy's saying. I'm just looking at.
Me too.
I'm looking at November. We have a meeting on the 6th, and we do not have one on the 20th because it'll be right before Thanksgiving. Why don't we do a short meeting and just have an executive session and do kind of a little bit mini review because they have to be turned in by the 1st, right?
Right.
So why don't we do an executive session on like November 13th of this year, and we will do just council, period. That way we can do a full evaluation even of our administrator. We can do that prior to, and then everybody can write the reports the following month, is what you're saying.
So give Kathy some time to
we
really
can.
research this legally of what we can and what we can't do with evaluations. I think our administrator and Kathy could do that. I follow what you're saying.
Yeah.
Totally.
These are evaluations in the file, not the method of making the evaluation. This is something that's been done and put in the file. We've got to find out the legal position of that. Can anybody go back in there? The answer is more than likely no.
No.
Getting it done and how you do that, that's a free-for-all. That's another story.
And
Since I wrote Susan and Neil's evaluation, Kathy, at this point, do I have a right to go in and see what I wrote?
You do as their counselor over
Yep.
them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I don't.
Correct.
Good.
Okay.
You're asking a very complex question, especially when you overlay collective bargaining agreements and
Yeah.
personnel policies and
Exactly.
yes, it's and
So-
discipline matters of discipline where it's a disciplinary issue.
And that's why I'm asking
Yeah.
it so we don't get off base. So we know I know exactly.
Any union members.
That's true.
yeah, that's why I said even.
But if you want to
department
go
heads.
into their file for whatever reason,
Yeah.
That's why I said even department heads. So, I don't think it's bad to do that. I mean, just to see, you're still not going to force me to write if I feel strongly about something, unless it's a census of the whole council. You're not going to force me to write something different.
Oh, no.
You know what I
Well,
mean? But I was like, yeah.
we also talked about
That's right.
the forms we use, and so we make a standard form so it makes it easy for everybody, easy to understand, real easy
Yeah,
to
let's
do.
do that. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
That's something that I just recently had a HR consultant from CIS come and do an HR assessment here. And one of the things that she suggested is to take our performance evaluation form and make it a little bit more simpler than what we have right now. It's not you guys you don't use the same form that we use for the general employees, but to make it a little simpler. So it would be standard around the whole city instead of just, one department using one thing and us other departments using one. So I'm.
So you guys are going to start working on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll steal theirs and we'll modify it when we, when we have our meeting.
Well, I mean, in this policy, it talks about evaluations being in a written form approved by the council, so
Yeah,
you have the ability to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
right.
And I will emphasize that I am a huge advocate of performance evaluations. I believe that every employee deserves to have a performance evaluation
Yes.
in their
It
file.
makes a difference.
It is a huge
Absolutely.
makes a huge difference
Absolutely.
whether it's
Yep.
an employee who is a great employee or a difficult employee or whatever. It's important for the employee. It's important for the supervisor. It's important for the city to have that
For
document.
accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, this, so yes, absolutely. Yep. Okay.
That's my spiel.
Getting back to the deal, I just want to point out for the rest of you guys, because when I started, we had a hired judge and a hired attorney here. And that's where they fall under the council's privy, not the administrator or the managers, because they could obviously get together and do all kinds of stuff if they were buddies and friends or whatever the case would be. So that's why but as a contractor, they're a little bit different because it's a contracted thing. But if for some reason the city was to hire an attorney again or a judge, whatnot, then it definitely falls under different rules as far as who.
Well, one council member makes the difference in that. If one council member is part of that formula, then that breaks that up, doesn't
Right.
it? And so if the mayor assigns somebody off the council to that department, it might be himself, and that breaks that chain of the city administrator, the attorney, and the judge up, like
Right.
you're saying. And I would just say, to break that up, you just assign, you make that a committee, or make that a committee of some sort, and assign a counselor to it, and that does
Well, that's a
the
department already, so
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
The judge and the prosecutor positions report to
Matt Brown.
city council.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that also says me, but I think for the
Yeah, city administrator and,
and
city
the
council.
city council. But I
What's weird is it's your department, though, that you oversee the
But
employees.
I oversee it
the
at the
employees.
discretion of John because it's under administration. So he delegates
Yeah.
that supervision to me.
Have we changed it on our what do you call it, our tree?
The organizational
Organizational
chart?
chart?
Yes, it is. Not currently on the one you can probably find in the budget document, but on the new budget document, it will be.
Right, so it's still under the council.
Correct, it is.
So
Yeah.
separate from everything else.
Correct.
Right.
yeah, it's
So-
an interesting org chart. Look at it, and some cities have a pretty robust discussion about the staff having legal counsel, and then the council having legal, which I don't think we need to go there, but I think
Oh, really? Kind of break it up and
We're a team.
administrative versus more policy level types of things. And that,
Well, it's a matter of who they work for.
yeah.
It's like anything else, yeah, it's keeping a buffer.
Yeah.
Checks and balances.
okay. Any other on the governing policy?
Can I ask a quick question on the governing policy? And
Yeah, make it quick.
You get a lengthy answer.
that's what I'm afraid of.
We're not putting anything special in for the finance director, no.
No, I'm not going to ask. I'm just clarifying. And actually, since John oversees me directly, I'm not overseen individually as other departments are. So it's a little different in my seat than it is to Margaret or the police chief, obviously. But I had a question just coming. If I'm looking at it from their perspective as a department head, we're changing the governing policy to be supervised by John and having a counselor as a true liaison for communication purposes. If Margaret is getting a review, is the review coming from the liaison and John only? Or are you guys meeting in an executive session to discuss all of your opinions on Margaret to write the review? It seems a little confusing.
Well, we're actually gonna steal a copy of the form, and it's gonna be me and John over maybe evaluating you or whatever. Keith and
Correct. So if
Keith and John
Brian's getting a
evaluating
review,
Brian,
yeah,
yes.
it's going to be written by Keith
Both these
and
two.
John.
Yes.
But the perspective of what your guys' opinions are of Brian and what they're doing, you're just going to have
We're gonna
discussions
a random
internally
discussion before. Yes.
before that review is written,
Yep.
so that it's aware on the
Yeah.
review. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to clarify.
But your random discussion's gonna be in an executive
Yes.
session?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That way we can not. Everybody can speak openly and honestly.
Okay,
It just makes people more comfortable.
okay.
Yep.
And then, I just want to be a little more clear on the governing policy because I'm still not quite clear on it. So the way it is right now is where there's a counselor over a department.
Mm-hmm.
This changes it to where there isn't a counselor
No.
over a department?
No,
That stays the same.
That stays the same?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But it's merely a communication standpoint. Does that
It's
change
just,
the
well,
supervisory
the
aspect
difference
of?
is we can't make a decision without going to John.
Oh, okay, so the,
Okay, so as far as directing staff and projects and goals and all that stuff, that it
and
still go
also
through John.
allows him just a little bit more authority.
okay.
Is the
Okay.
whole idea, right?
So in Matt's example, if there was, if it bounces back to the collaborative decision process, if there's, the department head disagrees with
Right.
the evaluation or anything else, really, it would kick up to the council for a discussion.
Okay.
So that seems like.
Could I ask? So I know this is kind of elementary, but who's my boss?
in this
well-
governing policy, I would say John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John.
Keith is a liaison through communication
Yeah.
and discussion, so he'll still visit you and know what's going on. And he
What
can
I would say
share
is,
those.
I mean, you would run your ideas over me, and if I didn't like them, then you could take them to John if I didn't like them, but which is the way it is anyway.
Well,
That's as confusing
That's
as
the-
that before I asked that question.
Yeah.
That's
then
what I
then
was
we're
trying to
still doing the
clarify.
exact same thing. Now Brian just has to get a
Another
approval
layer.
from two people instead of one.
Can't serve two masters, with all due respect.
Yeah.
One person, one boss. And if I may, not to
That's
digress
right.
on the evaluations, same thing, is that I don't think it's fair for any, and I'm not speaking to me, for future growth, that there's no expectation of department heads, yet there's input by the council who don't interact with that certain department head on a daily basis or weekly basis. So I would just, as dealing with human resources vastly in my past job, a word of caution that when you come together and you discuss it'd be easy for a person to say, well, this is biased because
Yeah.
this person has absolutely zero interaction with me.
Yep.
And then they weigh in. And again, I don't think the current staffing has an issue. We all work as a team. We're moving the city forward.
absolutely.
But down the road, if we put something in writing, it could surface again. And again, it's serving more than one boss. And it's very confusing, to say, okay, well, what do I do? What's my expectations? Who do I answer to? And then to do it on a yearly basis is okay. I mean, but I would think that the council would want to do that a little more frequently to ensure that if you can identify some challenges and address them before they get to the point where damage has been done. if that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Absolutely.
But again, I'm not trying to get in your world. I'm just asking, and again, not to be, it's a little confusing to me. Who do I report to? Again, I work well with John. I work well with Keith. I work with everybody. But I also want to know if it's just day to day, who do I run this by? And like Matt said, Keith, if it's still you,
No, it'll be John.
okay.
It
Okay.
says it right here. It says department heads shall be supervised by the city administrator, period.
Yes.
Okay. And that's clear cut then. Thank
Yeah.
you. I was just a little confused when you said
No.
about you're a liaison and
So he
I
would.
mean, you'll talk to everything
Yeah.
with me so that
Right.
I know what's going on.
Understandable.
That way I can,
Yes, sir.
can talk to the rest of the council and what.
That way, if I have concerns like, hey, I hear there's some stuff going on over at the police department, Keith, what's going on over there, right?
You don't want to. You don't want to know.
I think something's going on because I'm using an example every meeting, and I'm a little nervous. So, okay, so basically Keith Locke, let's see, block. Okay. John Walsh, accept. Okay.
Oh, that's funny. So that's,
You
yeah.
have to take me to lunch, though.
Okay, so I think we're done with governing policies now. So now we're gonna move on because we're like only 45 minutes behind schedule.
This is important stuff.
I know. Review, revise, court clerk job description. Matt.
Hopefully this is pretty quick. We had some changes in personnel over in the court department, so we are taking the opportunity to revise and kind of beef up the expectations and responsibilities or job duties of the court clerk position. So it's just kind of a good timing with the personnel changes to look at everything. The union has reviewed it and approved what is in front of you tonight to basically give the okay with, and so has the new judge and the city prosecutor who we've been working with on all the details of the job description.
Are we saving money?
Well, we only have one court clerk right now, or that is acting as a court clerk. She's the legal assistant, Melanie, who's stepped into the court clerk role on a temporary basis until a permanent role's figured out.
And we revamped, so we spent money in order to get it back
Right.
to. Yeah.
I just want to know if we're going to save any money, or are we doing things more efficiently?
We are starting to go in that efficient route, but we're still going through a backlog, which we started with 15 boxes of backlog stuff. I think Melanie and April, who's been assisting from the utility billing department on almost a full-time basis now in the court department, I think we're down to about 4, 5 boxes maybe.
Impressive.
So they've been working extra hard on weekends, overtime, to get the court back up to a more stable position. So.
From a service level perspective, I would say things are much improved.
Oh yeah, from a service level, very
cost
much.
piece of it ties into that for sure, but
yes,
some of that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
But that's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Department reports. Chief Greenway.
Keeping on the lines of performance, I just have one item, and it's the 2018 Police Department's annual report was sent out last week, and I encourage all of our citizens watching online or anyone to please review it. It highlights the events in the community with the Police Department in 2018, and it was our pleasure to submit that. And Adam Hartless had graduated Friday. He is now on the streets.
Hey, good for Adam.
So he is in field training. We have a secure date for our newest officer who was sworn in 2 weeks ago, Terry Massey. He'll be attending the DPSST next month, beginning April 15th. And we are currently finishing up backgrounds on 2 new hires, and hopefully we'll get them on the roads as soon as we get them in here to get sworn in.
So
if
you still have one more position? Didn't you have 4 empty positions?
We did. So we have one more position to fill after these 2.
Right.
So, and we're actively going to fill these 2, and then so we're getting to where we need to be. And the officers are motivated. We do have our new vehicles. They are at Enterprise.
Nice.
We are just trying to. I went down there Friday after my trip to Salem, stopped by to look at them. They're very obviously nice. They're new cars, but our challenge is now we have one vendor that we use to outfit the cars, change the radios over, and the equipment, the cages, and they are low backlog. So we've been communicating with them to try to get these out there in a timely manner. Because again, we now have these cars, and for lack of a better term or word, the warranties are ticking on these cars, as they sit on the lot. So we want to get them out there soon. So we're working with them, trying to negotiate a quicker timeline to get them out into the fleet and field. So other than that, the police department's going well.
What kind of liability issue would there be if the mayor wanted to take the car for a drive? I've never drove a cop car.
Mr. Walsh, Mr. Walsh,
Mr. Walsh?
as my immediate supervisor, can absolutely none, sir. This is your city, and we're here to serve you and the citizens.
Yeah.
So
I look forward to seeing the new fleet. I really
it is, and the officers are out there. I hear good things from the officers. and the community. Everybody's clicking along, and we're making things happen. So I'm very proud of the
I hear
officers.
good things about our officers out there as well.
Yeah, and very, very good. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Sue.
Just a couple quick updates on a couple projects. The South 10th Street Storm Project, they've finished about half of the horizontal directional drilling and have the new pipe pulled through that.
Nice.
So that's going really well. And also, not only is Gable Road open, everybody got the word from the county on that, but also we passed a big milestone as far as the consultant obtaining all of the right-of-way acquisition that they were needing in order to construct the full thing. So we're meeting with the county tomorrow and hoping to get the project out to bid before the end of the month. So they were just waiting for those last couple people to sign their sales
right-of-way,
agreements for
yeah.
the right of way. Correct. So very excited about that.
So Sue, looked like a brand new, big, huge pipe.
Huge pipe.
Yes, and the county did it all to specs that we're going to be able to eventually inherit
Yes.
that.
Yes, they've had this planned for a couple of years actually, and they had it planned to align with the new widening and the new improvements for Gable Road. They weren't able to. They were hoping to be able to get the culvert in actually last fall, but weren't able to. I don't recall if it was a permit issue or a funding issue, but they weren't able to get it done at the time frame that they had wanted to at that point in time. So, as they said before they got in there and started doing the work, it was kind of a blessing in disguise that this happened. You know, the road would have had been closed at some point in time in order to do that. So this way they got all their permits expedited.
Little easier.
They got a nice window of weather
Yes.
to be able to complete this. They had all the fish biologists, the whole 9 yards. I mean, they did everything by the book as far as.
And probably about 30 yards of material they didn't have to dig out.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, there was a few challenges, but the contractor seemed to do an excellent job. It's somebody that they have used in the past to do other culvert and bridge projects in the county, and sounds like they've done good work on those as well. So everything seems to be going in the right direction.
Good.
Over on Gable.
Yep. All right.
Anyway, that's all I have.
Okay, Neil.
For those of you that don't know, Gray Cliff Park got paved, and it turned out really nice. I think we did some striping there today. The only other thing I had was been asked to give you guys an update on my retirement plans. So I'm shooting for May 1st. I haven't officially gave notice yet, but that's my goal, and I'm still waiting on some more information from HERS to make that certain. But hopefully, in the next week, I can make it official.
All right. Well, I tell you what.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome, and definitely let us know sooner than later, because I would like people in the public to know. I mean, you've been with the city for a long time, Neil. 37 years. Sue gave me the 37. So I think that definitely I'd like to let some people know that I know in the community that, hey, if you see Neil, razzle him because he's getting ready to retire. Now's the time. So
I certainly couldn't be blessed with a better mentor or a person that I have worked with and worked with most of my tenure as a council person, 10 out of the 12 years. You're really going to be missed, not only by this person, but by individuals who are working throughout the city. You are remarkable. And you get kudos beyond belief that you'd never hear about. So, Neil, you're really going to be missed. You're going to be hearing this every council meeting, so you better be here, right?
You might have to leave us a phone number or something.
I love it.
1-800.
All right. So, yeah, keep us posted on that, Neil. Margaret.
Well, I just have a slide that Kathy's going to put up. Crystal sent out a press release and announcing the Columbia County Reads 2019. This year, all the libraries in Columbia County came together to select 2 books to read as a community. You only see 4 libraries listed there as locations for the author events, but actually all 6 libraries came together to select the books. We just decided on 4 different locations and times to bring the authors to Columbia County. We are going to be reading Breaking Chains by Greg Noakes and Worthy Brown's Daughter by Philip Margolin. Philip Margolin is best known as a writer of crime fiction. He has a long career as a criminal law and still maintains a law office, but he's had a real vibrant literary career. And Greg Noakes is known as a nonfiction author who's focused on the history of events in Oregon and the West. And the theme is slavery in Oregon, and the reason we've decided to focus on this is because we felt that this was a little-known episode in the history of Oregon, that most people don't realize that there was slavery in Oregon. And what Greg Noakes did is he wrote Breaking Chains, which is a nonfiction account of the events of a slave family that was brought to Oregon with the understanding that when they helped their master get established, then they would be given their freedom. And when that time came, he gave the mother and father their freedom but kept their children. And so the father hired a lawyer and took them to court. So it's a very interesting story. Well, Phil Margolin came along and he thought it was a fascinating story, and so he created a fictional version of those events. The characters are a little different. It's a father and a daughter as opposed to a whole family. But his book reads like the Wild West. It's just a real entertaining read. But we felt like by picking both books that we would attract people who were drawn to real-life accounts, as well as people who liked a more gripping fictional read. I had a chance to see these authors together at the Oregon Historical Society's book club last summer, and so they'll be, kind of bouncing off of each other and the experience of having these 2 parallel stories. Gregory Noakes will have some more specific information about history, and when he presents at the St. Helens Public Library on April 25th at 7, they'll be in the auditorium, so he'll actually have some projected materials to share. This collaboration also involves the Columbia County Museum Association. They are going to look into their archives and find pictures of what Columbia County was like at the same period in time that this story took place. There was no slavery in Columbia County, but they want to give people a sense of what Columbia County was like at the same time this story was going on. And in some cases, there might be communities that are just forest. But in any event, the last thing I want to mention is that recently on OPB, there was a new program premiered in the Oregon Experience series, and it's called Black Pioneers, and Gregory Noakes was featured heavily in that. And you can watch that episode online by going to OPB, and you can stream that episode and see Gregory. So and the final thing is we got grant support for this from the Columbia County Cultural Coalition. They approved a $2,000 grant to help us offset the expenses of bringing the authors here, and also we had to match that with equivalent funds and actually more, because there's a purchase of books that are available for checkout at all of the libraries. So I think this is an interesting collaboration. We've done 2 books before, once before, but this is the first time we've had a real Oregon focus. So this is going to be an interesting year for Columbia County Reads. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Margaret. Matt?
Just a few things. Wanted to update you that if you didn't see it on the agenda tonight, under the approved and authorized for signature is a professional contract services for the police station study. So after the RFP process and a couple of rounds of interviews and visits with the 2 firms that put in for the RFP, we selected McKinsey to move forward with. And so that contract is on tonight's agenda to start that process. Also wanted to remind everybody that the Recreation Forum is next Monday on the 25th at 6 p.m. at the Recreation Center. So I will do a kind of a short presentation about the rec program, its history, kind of what we've received so far as funding, what that money goes towards, that kind of stuff. It won't be too very long. And
Matt, I was just wondering if it'd be a good idea just to, you might have already too. Have you invited any of the budget committee members to that forum?
Not directly. No. Well, I know Rachel. I have actually seen Rachel Berry and had a
Yeah.
meeting with her, so I know she's probably going to come.
I think it would be a good idea to,
I can
to
definitely
have them there because we're getting ready to do budget committee season, and that was their idea.
Yeah.
The committee as a whole to
Correct.
have this forum. So please do.
Yeah, I will definitely reach out to them and let them know. So that'll be going on next Monday. We've met this morning with myself and Shauna and our recreation lead Ryan to start putting together the summer catalog. So that will be coming out, we're hoping middle of April for May, June, July, and August. And we have a lot of fun activities planned. So should be a nice big catalog. The other thing I wanted to update the council on is the IT specialist job. Myself, Kathy, Jose, and Brenda from the library, and Sue sat on a panel yesterday for I think 11 or 12 people. By the time we ended up, 13 people over the last couple days, and we have selected 4 finalists to come back tomorrow to re-interview with myself, Kathy, and Craig, who is the president of Center Logic. So hopefully after that we'll have a final decision on who we'll hire as an IT specialist, and then that person and us will discuss all of our IT future needs and which direction to go. So
you literally had 13 qualified applicants.
well, we had 61 applications.
Yes,
we
but-
dwindled it down between myself, Kathy, and John to I think about 22, and then by the time we actually held interviews, we ended up with 13 because people had accepted other jobs or decided not to pursue an interview, those kind of things. So
We had a lot of veterans, and veterans, if they're qualified, have to be interviewed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we had 12 veterans, quite a few.
Okay.
Yep. And that's all I have.
Right. Thanks, Kathy.
I don't have anything.
Nothing. Okay. Council reports. Councilor Locke.
You want a tourism
Oh.
report?
Yeah. Tina, you want to come up and give us a report? I'm just trying to get out of here. I see the sunshine. I got shorts on.
So we had meetings with the merchants on several initiatives that we're trying to get in place that will happen monthly throughout the entire year. The response was really positive. We'll see if they fill out the forms and send them in so that we can move forward. And I'm working with the St. Helens Marina and the port on the salmon derby that we will be doing. And we're working also on a number of new initiatives that are one that is coming online now is at discovercolumbiacounty.com. And we're having stories and interviews and hot topics so we can directly address people with the facts as we know them. and immediately, so we don't need to wait to have access to the community at large. If you run into a question, we can immediately put the answers up there. The response from the port was like outstanding. They're very excited about this, and everybody actually that we're talking to is excited about the direction that we're going, and I haven't heard really any negatives. And we have been out talking to everybody and getting feedback from them, so it's going well from my standpoint.
I seen you out walking the
I know.
streets. I did.
I said it's desperate times, man.
It's getting worse. It's out of control.
So, anyway, I don't know anything else that
I don't think
John.
I've ever seen Tina that red before.
Oh. Anything, John, that we need to?
I would just invite people to go to, the cities ran Travel Columbia County, Discover Columbia County for a decade. And,
Yeah.
And it's over the years kind of gravitated to be pretty St. Helens centric, and we're purposefully taking a more countywide approach with the site. We've invited other cities to submit materials. We'll change the facelift so it looks and feels like what it was designed to be, and
Yep.
and the changes are very positive, I think. So.
Any questions?
Nope. Good
Okay.
work, Tina.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
John, sorry about that.
Quite right. Last night at the city county dinner, I was got tapped. I got tapped to do to the city's report, and I got a ways through that, and I had one of those wow moments that, man, there's a lot going on, with all the all the residential construction and the commercial, industrial, all the planning work that's going on, the tourism efforts, Sand Island, work at the mill site. So it was pretty. What a humbling moment that it's like there was so much going on. And I wanted to point out on the agenda tonight, there is as far as the food bank, the city's managing the food bank. There's an agreement to authorize the city. That's on the agenda. Also, there is an agreement with Campbell Park as far as to the Oregon Park and Rec Department for improvements to Campbell Park. Which is an effort to leverage those existing resources that the city is putting towards that strategic park investment. We're trying to leverage that money to get even a better investment, and that's a good thing. And also, with regards to the business park development, there's an agreement with an RV park consulting firm that I landed a feasibility study for that property right there, and I've had some interactions with this firm, and it seemed to be really positive. And
Which property again?
behind the Fair Building. So
Yes, okay, thank you.
that's
I was going to ask about that.
direct. I need like the coin to drop or the marble or something to. That's right. So also, staff is also working on a number of things, partnerships with the county. This historic preservation grant, Jenny is working on it's a federal grant, $750,000 request to help historic buildings. And the projects that are listed in this 10-page application are helping the courthouse out with its structural issues it has up there. Similarly with the theater and other projects would apply. So it would be a program where the city would receive the funds, and then we'd provide grants out to these other projects, and it's pretty exciting. Rec program, this forum, I think it's kind of important to talk about all the hard work that's gone into just making it go right now. The CCO grant through the Oregon Health, I think the number is $80,000 request, something of that nature. Yeah, the coordinated care.
So we're waiting to hear back on a grant for the CCCO we put in. It's about a $99,000 grant. Pays for a lot of staffing and some programming and materials to continue the rec center on for ongoing and added programming, pretty much.
Right, it's kind of a seed money to kind of get it up to a point where it can be sustainable.
Correct.
That's
yeah.
great. Staff's working really hard to try to make
this would be our second request. We did receive one grant when we first started from the CCCO for about $25,000 as well as the Ford Family Foundation, who gave us a grant. And that kind of gave us the initial seed to hire that part-time staff person and a rec assistant and kind of get it started. And now we have a building and some other needs, and so we're asking for some more money and staffing to kind of continue to build that program.
I think I would agree with John, because we'll be there for the forum, I'll get it going, but you'll probably be talking the most out of anybody, maybe, potentially.
I'm happy to, and I think
But
a presentation
definitely that we
is
hit-
in order to kind of let the community
Definitely
know how much effort we've put in and how
the
much money
grant,
we've already
yes,
received for
yes.
funds and everything like that.
It's important to note that there's been a lot of work that's gone into it. There's a lot of thanks to go around to those who supported it, but at the end of it, it's not a sustainable long-term solution. So I think that's the purpose of the forum there. But the build grant cycle has not formally announced right as of yet, but we're posturing with our discussions with consultants that helped us with the project before to identify. We had a good debriefing interview with the federal officials at team. We know where weaknesses are in the application, even though it scored really high. I mean, it scored in the highest possible category. It just didn't get funded. So, but it's highly likely, it's a highly qualified project, and I have a proposal from this consultant to do that extra lift of work, do some renderings, changing the project scope so that the benefit-cost ratios are a little more favorable. And so we're posturing for that 90-day window to open. Once they opened up the noticed funding opportunity, then they have 90 days to submit the application. But once that window's open, there's limited access to some of the reviewers, so we're anticipating that work in advance to try to get a stronger application. So, the lagoon repurposing work, the scope of work that we had waiting has been kind of stuck at the Department of Justice offices. We've had a couple of back and forths, but it's been really super close to just really, three-letter words kind of stuff. And I guess lastly, Sand Island camping agreement is, there's some points on the transaction itself that I wanted to talk about in executive session, but other than that, I think they're going to be acceptable to the council. Wanted to talk about the next steps as far as, we want to do a public forum on this. There's really not it's not a sale of public property. It's a lease, and there's no option to purchase it at the end of it. So, the public hearing, as we've done on other properties, isn't technically required, but it might be a good opportunity to kind of celebrate this public-private opportunity and talk about it publicly and have a forum about it or something of that nature. So in the executive session, I'd like to talk about the deal points, and we had a good run-through at the last meeting and with the council and legal counsel. Good. Should be pretty close. If not, you could even approve it tonight if you wanted to. It's that close. I think it's just one paragraph and some.
Really?
Yeah.
Good. Anything else?
Yeah, there's lots.
That's good for now.
That's enough.
Okay, Councilor Locke.
Just wanted to state that it's nice that we do have new officers and they're coming on board, but they really won't be on the street until probably like the end of the year. And if history repeats itself, we'll probably need another 2 or 3 officers by then.
Yeah.
So it's never full.
Yes.
So just remember that come budget time when Brian hasn't asked for maybe some more officers or something like that. So anyway, other than that, I guess I need your permission to take over Susan's spot on the tourism commission, the new county tourism commission. I just happened to be here the other day when there was John and a few others were having, and John gave me 2 good recommendations, and they asked me to join. So
this is the countywide effort that there's a funding committee and some different roles that St. Helens had 2 seats at the table on that committee.
Sure.
It's good. Your time will be short, so have in mind a replacement for you when if you leave the council.
I'm
If
just
you
hoping they
leave.
can have the meetings in Salem, that's all.
Pardon me?
I'm just hoping they can have the meetings in Salem, that's all.
Cool. Very cool.
So, that's all.
All right. Councilor Topaz. Okay. Council President Morton.
In parks, we had a presentation recently of the study of an urban trail that will be coming to the council. Recommendation from the Parks Commission to bring that to the council and to the staff for review. So I was very encouraged about the work that has been done on that in terms of connectivity and in terms of a trail that circumvents a bit of the waterfront, a lot of the waterfront, and up into Nob Hill Nature Park, into Gray Cliffs, and into Columbia View Park. It encompasses 3 parks, and it's exciting to me. So they'll bring that to staff and to the council for review, for staff to consider and council to consider in going ahead and declaring that an urban trail. Along with that, recommendation to look at the northern part of Gray Cliffs Waterfront Park, and in further clearing of the brush out of the area to facilitate a picnic, kind of a picnic area more on the north end of that. And so I think that also brings a good chance for picnicking on the waterfront. Veterans Memorial Plaza is to be completed in the summer, and of course that'll give us 2 pavilions then for rentals of huge gatherings, reunions, and that kind of thing. So I'm excited about that.
Just so you know, Doug, I didn't have a chance to tell you, but the building got done this week.
Wow.
So it's all done.
So now I appreciate that. And so the monuments and those kinds of things will be following.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the plan is from
Yeah.
here on out, but I just want to let you know that the building's done.
Monuments in the wall. Yeah, that's scheduled to happen this summer, early summer, and of course Andrew Nemi from Lower Columbia Engineering is spearheading that effort, and hats off to him for all of that work. Public Works. It's really interesting to me to finally see some improvements start to happen on Gable Road. I noticed of course, the culvert, and obviously the PUD is out there with their utility poles going in, the new utility poles, getting the wires out of the way up high. It looks very good, and that's interesting to see that start to come along. That's great. I'm excited about that. And for the council, this is kind of interesting because of Margaret's report. Maybe on the tail end of Margaret's read, that it might be a good time for the council to entertain a resolution regarding racial bigotry and ethnic hatred. There's been those kinds of activities throughout our nation. It's happened to us kind of locally where we got the finger pointed to us. Maybe it's time for the council to strike a resolution. And many cities have done that throughout the country. And I'm just doing it on the follow-up of your read. I think it'd be a timely thing. So that's something that we could consider. We've been challenged in editorials in in our local newspaper of, come on, city leaders, take the initiative to go forward and do something. And so I thought, well, you know, maybe this would be good, because being silent is a lot of times is not a good thing, even though this council is not silent, but especially specifically to ethnic hatred and racial bigotry, which might exist in our community, might not. I'm not certain, but I think it'd be important to possibly draft a resolution. So that's just my report.
Does our ethics resolution cover any of that?
I don't think so. I think this would be more citizen-oriented throughout our community rather than the council itself. And do you know what I mean?
I don't think it hurts to have anything, a resolution in writing.
Good for you.
Yep. So
I think, and we could look at our ethics code on with that in mind as well. Good suggestion, Keith. I had several conversations with several residents regarding, use of the hospital property. And there were several that approached me and said, you know, that belonged to the school district at one time. And with all the building that's going on and all the apartments and homes up on Pittsburgh Road and in various other areas, what do you think about allowing and getting into partnership with our educational district, our school district, and seeing if that might be an appropriate place for a new school? And I go, I'll just mention it. So I've just mentioned it. Okay, so there's food for thought. If anyone wants to follow up on that, maybe we can talk about it. But I think we have talked a lot about that hospital property. I don't know if anything is in really determined a sound direction to it with maybe the zoning and that kind of thing. But I just got talked to from several citizens about it would make perfect sense to do that. Questions from several veterans regarding any programs at the rec center specifically for veterans, and open the door for veterans benefits, for grants, for that kind of thing, to help facilitate programs, whether it's art programs or any kind of programs at all for veterans. So that's my report on parks, on public works, and to the council. Thanks.
thanks, Council President Morton. Another Amber Alert, huh? Okay, so Colpack, stay tuned. There will be more to come about the Opportunity Zone. We'll know more in mid-April. It sounds very interesting, very enticing to potential builders or investors. So we will be talking about that more as a council, I'm sure, middle of April, but we will not have the information until then. So probably late April, but we'll say middle April is what we were told. And there was one other thing I was going to report about. Oh, I wanted to talk about the mill property. Just curious on how that is going as far as do we have a map, the wetlands? Do we have anything to go on so far?
I will check on that.
Okay.
And I know that there's flags all over, and
they're everywhere.
I don't know what
I think
that is.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see what comes of the RV park there, and maybe future RV parking as well. So it'd be nice to know a little bit more about that. But I know the first step is getting the wetlands delineated and figuring out where those are at. So I just really want to get that going, because that's in our it's the only industrial property we control personally, and it's in our urban renewal district, and it's vitally important to the growth of our city. So I'd like to just move that forward and just kind of keep bumping along. I know it takes time. Everything takes time, but we got to keep revisiting it and put a little pressure on. So whoever the people are that we need to put pressure on, let's do it. If you don't have that information.
I think it's moving along further.
Yeah.
I'd hope to have a go back when you're.
Yeah.
If you're done.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. A few weeks ago, I was at the port at a meeting with most of the cities that are affected by rail in Columbia County, and the I don't know, call it intervention of the Scappoose and St. Helens coming to the port meeting on that lease renewal kind of initiated a conversation about concerns about traffic safety in Columbia County. And there was last done a report, I think it was in 2000, some updated in 2008, and the partners that were in the room at that meeting represented about 50-50 cities and some of your bigger rail user hauler businesses, and everybody there was committed to participating in this update or new study. But there was a price to it, and it was $7,500, and I didn't feel comfortable raising my hand.
Always a catch.
Without the council weighing in on that. So it doesn't seem like a huge amount of money, but
$7,500.
$7,500. They're addressing, access management and traffic in the future. And
all right, along those lines, I'd like to make a recommendation to the council to recommend that we revisit our master transportation plan and update it to where we look at a northern overpass of the rail over the rail and a southern overpass, highway overpass over the rail, because we do not know what future federal administrations are going to do with transportation. And if we have it in a plan, if we have it in our master plan, we're way ahead of everyone else. And that has chances of being funded if we have it in a plan. So I would recommend that we revisit it because of the future use of rail and how busy that rail is going to be, and the future concerns of our city. I'd just like to see that happen, a study.
so an update to the transportation system plan.
Yes.
So I know that when we put those big projects in there, we have to put them out at a horizon that doesn't in fact impact rates, because it makes our transportation connection fees so incorrigibly high. So, but it is, I agree completely that it is, if you want a project to be funded in the future, it needs to be part of your community priorities through your plans. Although the warrants would be really difficult. But
So would the $7,500, would that get us something that would show?
yeah, that would be kind of an overlay at a higher level that would show a priority. Yeah, but the technicality of it, when it came to actually applying for grants, that group's not going to be the one leading that. It would be the city that would be leading it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd show stronger
But it
support.
would be a piece to that.
Yeah,
right?
it would be good. It'd be.
We're not, it's
It
not,
would be a positive. Yes.
I would say 7,500, I would.
But that's. Yeah, I think the transportation system plan was 2011 last updated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sue, how do you feel about it sounds like fairly, I mean, to get in on with everybody, $7,500 doesn't seem like.
Oh, yeah, that seems somewhat reasonable. I was just thinking, I thought they had looked at a southern overpass option when they did the TSP. Whether it made the list of proposed improvements or not, I do not recall.
So
It didn't.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I'm saying something, because
Yeah.
And when was that done?
2011.
2011.
Mhm.
Okay, so since then though, has the one little railroad crossing there by Vonnie's, which it was legitimate, by the way, that they just took out. It was a legitimate. You could actually get out and go.
Correct.
That has not been accounted for in my eyes on some of these conversations that
Now,
we
if
actually
I,
lost.
if I
one.
recall that one, it wasn't a permitted, and it was only being used, if I recall the situation, it was only being used in theory by the railroad themselves, and I know it wasn't.
Yes.
Originally it was.
Yeah, and I think that was it. It wasn't an
Actually, it
actual
wasn't.
permitted access.
That used to have fuel tanks behind there, and there used to be big trucks that came across that. I'm trying to think of their names. That owned it. Ruffino. Ruffino's owned it.
Oh, Ruffino, yeah.
Yep. Huh?
Dean Scarborough worked there.
Dean Scarborough worked there. Yeah. Yep. So I mean, it wasn't just railroad. It was actually there was a fuel right behind it, where the
A
railroad
lot
is.
of people used it, but I think intentionally initially it was just made for the railroad, and everybody else would start using it.
Yeah, I remember conversations about that, and because it wasn't permitted, and then there was some new or improved accesses, something they had to give up, something had to be modified, changed, removed, whatever, in order to accommodate either the improved intersections or new intersections.
Mm-hmm. So is Scappoose involved in that meeting? Were they receptive to
yes.
the county? Or
Yeah,
they part of that? Probably not. Even though
I
they
don't
should
believe we
be.
would have even had the meeting unless it was Scappoose and St. Helens that came out.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Talk about it. So yes, there's an initiative to do the study, and
Yep.
I assume that this council can be on board with that. I just
Yes.
want to talk about it.
Yep. Okay. So, anybody else need to do over before I adjourn? Okay, we're adjourned. All right, we're gonna be going into executive session here.